Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. It is Tuesday, January 20th. We are live. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are live after a long 3-day weekend in which the markets were closed yesterday. A couple of things happened over the past 3 days that obviously have had some implications for the markets. We were live on the Future Show last night, and we discussed some of those things, the implications they had for the markets. I hope everyone got the time to enjoy, at least in the States, a little bit of time off. The Europeans did have the markets open yesterday, which if you looked at some of the prices and how they were quoted in the European markets, it kind of signaled that things would not likely be the best when the US markets opened. And yeah, things are not likely the best, but maybe that changes. We're going to see how today ends up playing out. Obviously, the events over the weekend have been pretty dramatic, to say the least, and we got a lot of different updates this morning that are kind of de-escalating, kind of not de-escalating. But for those that missed it over the weekend, Trump has threatened 10% tariffs on a variety of countries, including Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the UK, Netherlands, and Finland. If he does not get an agreement to purchase Greenland, those 10% tariffs start on February 1st, and they will escalate to 25% in June. It feels like this was inevitable, right? Like something was going to mess up the bull run. It was going to Trump was throwing out all these random policies back and forth, Fannie and Freddie, QE, stopping defense contractors from giving dividends, all these random things, and nothing affected the markets. It kind of just kept going back and forth. And then you had the one thing that actually did matter, which was the T word, which is not a word that was fun last year, although it did create the best buying opportunity in the middle of a bull market. But that T word is back, and that T word is tariffs. S&P 500 down 1.5%. I woke up this morning at 5:30, and the pre-markets, if anyone was awake at that time, it was really ugly. And it's probably a different time for the Europeans, but if you're around that time, Eastern Standard, at 5:30, it was ugly. We have since recovered a little bit since. We were at 679 on the S&P. Now we're at 681, which means like a hoodie was at 102. Now hoodie's at 105, which is still pretty ugly given this thing was at 120 last week. But it's a little bit of a recovery, not anything meaningful. But the fact that it got that bad at 5 a.m., why are you late if you're up at 5? First of all, I wasn't late. I was here at 8:45. But if it got that bad, then obviously it could get that bad again when the markets do open. There was a couple of updates over the past, 2 hours that maybe got us a little bit of recovery that we'll talk about. Obviously, it could be a head fake and things could get a lot worse. And so we'll have a lot to dive into. Bitcoin falling off a cliff as well. Yesterday was holding 92 from 95. It is right back to 90.9. We're going to see if that one has any momentum to hold on to. Ethereum 3,083, that got to 3,076, $80 away from falling below 3,000 once again. This was at 3,400 last week. The Googs down 2%, Roblox down 3%, VG down 5%, Meta down 2%, almost near its lows that it was last night in the overnight markets. MP is down 1%, JP Morgan down 2%, Meta again down 2%, CoreWeave down 5%, IREN down 5.7%, Rocket Lab down 3.3%, SoFi got to 24.90 last night, or 24.90 this morning. Now it's at 25.53, so a little bit of recovery, but that one still down. Zeta got to 19.18. Now it's at 19.50. That's down 3%. Salesforce down another 1%. Palantir down 2%. Adobe down 1%. Ondas, which actually got a price target this morning to $25. That stock down 3%. ASTS down 2.6%. Grab somehow is green. It was green last night, and it's green right now. I know they got a Bank of America upgrade, but I expect this one to fall with everything else, just given the algos. But that one's holding on to a little bit of green. AppLove, an absolutely horrendous short report. This stock got to $500 a couple hours ago. $500.95. Now it's at $543. So that's what I mean by a little bit of recovery that we've seen over the past couple hours. But this one also getting hit pretty bad. PayPal's down another 2%. Nebius is down 5%. Nvidia at 182. It's an ugly day. It's obviously an ugly day. And maybe that day continues to get uglier, or maybe we end up getting a little bit of de-escalation. I don't know. This is very reminiscent of the lead up to Liberation Day, and that led to a climax of peak volatility. I think we peaked at 60 on the VIX, and then things started to calm down. I don't think we're anywhere near that yet, but it kind of feels like we're setting up the foundation to get there. Not to mention, we have earnings this week. Netflix starts off today. Netflix, actually, I think that's green. Trump bought some of their corporate bonds the other day. Also, Netflix is down from 140, so maybe the pain is enough. 89.25, that's up 1.42%. So we do have corporate earnings that are beginning very soon. Are those earnings going to be enough to withstand the new 10% Greenland tariffs? I don't know, but time will tell, and time will tell pretty soon as we officially get into earnings and see what ends up playing out. On top of that, yes, that is correct. Supreme Court ruling on tariffs might happen today at 10 a.m. Do not count on it, but it is possible. On their website, they will release the opinion of one of the decisions that they have. They have a host of decisions. It might not be the tariff stuff. It might be. So at 10 a.m., we'll see if that ends up having any impact, and then we're going to have to go from there. So we got a lot to talk about. Thank you all for being here. Put in the chat what position or what stock you are eyeing and what price target you are eyeing. I know a lot of people over the past 24 hours have started to get more excited about getting into VG. A lot of people getting ready to get excited into Zeta. I mean, this thing kind of reversed their entire 20% move. That one's right back down to $19.60. If it falls to $18, then that's like officially erasing the move. But you got people that are eyeing things that look relatively attractive. Now, again, is it attractive in the context of a tariff conundrum that will last another couple months? Probably not, because these stocks are probably going to go lower if this thing lasts a couple months and it ends up getting as bad as it did last year. But if we get a little bit of a V shape and this is like the worst it's going to be because the markets are like, hey, we dealt with this last year. We're not going to deal with selling all our stocks again and let retail buy the dip and then retail massively outperforms hedge funds. If that is the way that the institutional money managers, which have already allocated a ton of capital to start the year, $180 billion into ETF flows, if that's how they want to play it, then I don't think we're going to get that much of a crazy, 10, 15% dip like we got last time because of the tariffs. It could happen for another reason, but maybe not because of these tariffs in particular. A lot of software names I see people discussing. I mean, if you don't want a specific software name, again, IGV just might be the way to play this. IGV down another 2% in the pre-markets. That's the software ETF. I mean, maybe it's not going to have semiconductor-like returns like SMH, but maybe it's good for at least 10, 15%. Just as a rebound if some of these companies come back to normal. Amcor, yep, that got hit to about 45 in the pre-markets. I think now it's at 47. I see a lot of Ondas. SoFi, if SoFi gets anywhere near the low 24s, I will add to my position again. But that one's right now at 25.50. Microsoft 420, where is MSFT? All the big tech names are once again getting hit pre-market. Wow, 451 on Microsoft. Tesla 426. Apple, are we below 250? We are at 252, so at least we're holding on to that. The Googs is down about 2%, 321. Jassy, Amazon CEO, he was just on CNBC, and they asked him about, hey, what do you think about the power glut? And he's like, we are spending so much freaking money on power and infrastructure, but it still isn't enough, which coincides with the TSM comments we saw last week about the increased CapEx spend, which makes me think the AI trade is, going to last for a while. Amazon right there down another 2.3%. And hopefully if it does, then that means the earnings will be able to outshine the concerns around tariffs. Iran at 48, Nebius at 80. Nebius at 80 again would actually be incredible if we get a chance. So yeah, a lot of these names, I do think they would be very attractive. Obviously Meta under 600. I know a lot of people are looking for that as well. Silver and gold once again have gapped up. So we talked about this last night, but wow, 95.27. I didn't even see that this morning. Gold, my goodness, 47.30. I mean, gold looks like it has a date with 5,000, up 1.12%. Silver right there, 95.26. Shanghai silver's at 115. Again, it's kind of hard to jump into this thing given it could collapse any second. Not really, but it also could just because it's been parabolic. But if you're in it and you're in it at 30, 40, 50 bucks, maybe selling doesn't have to be the solution here. So I'm watching from the sidelines, but obviously silver and gold gapping up is not a good thing necessarily for the equity markets, but it is a good thing if you're long commodities and once again benefiting from the debasement trade. The 10-year as well. So we got a lot of comments to get into from Bessent, but before we look at that, this 10-year is ugly, guys. It is really freaking ugly. There's 4.297, basically call it 4.3 in the 10-year. We haven't seen those levels since since April of last year. It's been a while since we've seen the 10-year gap up to these levels. That's the bond market saying, hey, we have an issue. Then you take a look at all the other treasuries, the 3-year, the 30-year, the 10-year, 20-year, all of them are gapping up. Not to mention Japan's 10-year and 30-year is kind of looking ridiculous. I mean, the rate at which people are selling Japanese bonds is just scary, to say the least. Take a look at this. The 40-year on Japan is up 13 basis points. The 30-year is at 3.7. That's an all-time high. The 20-year is at 3.3, and the 10-year is at 2.349. Again, that means investors are selling their Japanese bonds because they don't have enough faith in the government. They don't want to continue financing what the Japanese government is using the capital for. They probably are conflicted between the relationship between monetary and fiscal policy. They might think inflation's being higher than expected, so they don't think that 4.3% is enough for a 40-year yield. They are questioning the nature of the credit markets, and as a result, these yields are being pushed up higher, which is not good for any government, especially a government like Japan that already has a variety of issues in regards to monetary policy. Could that create a yen carry trade? I mean, maybe. People have been saying that for a while. It hasn't necessarily happened yet, like it did back in August of 24. The Dixie right here, we are slightly down 98.43, but it's not pretty. Like, it's really not pretty to see those yields. I mean, those yields spiking is worse than like seeing a growth stock down 10%, because the cost of capital controls the world. And like, it's not a joke seeing Japan spike up 40 basis points overnight. Like, that stuff's not supposed to, especially because it's already been in an uptrend. So seeing that continue to go higher, I mean, the implications of that, I don't think we fully understand, but hopefully it's not as bad as we think it is. All right, Bessent, what did he say this morning? Well, he wants everyone to sit back, calm down, and chillax.
Well, again, I would say this is the same kind of hysteria that we heard on April 2nd. There was a panic. And what I'm urging everyone here to do is sit back, take a deep breath, and let things play out. As I said on April 2nd, the worst thing countries can do is escalate against the United States. Back then, only one country, China, escalated. We ended up in an unfortunate tit for tat in tariff raises. We ended up at 145, 125. Through President Trump's good relations with Party Chair Xi, we have managed to stabilize that relationship and given great certainty. And as far as your question about the additional tariffs, what President Trump is threatening on Greenland is very different than the other trade deals. So I would urge all countries to stick with their trade deals. We have agreed on them, and it does provide great certainty.
Sit back, chill out, relax, don't worry about it. It's just 1% down on the S&P. It's not that big of a deal. We're negotiating. We're trying to figure out how to get Greenland. Don't be a panicking. That is the word of the administration. Video right there, 181.71. I mean, look, he might end up being right, and this might end up getting blown over. You did have a little bit de-escalation this morning already from Trump. I mean, it's kind of de-escalation, kind of not. He's not really refusing to reverse his stance, but he said, I had a very good telephone call with the Secretary General of NATO concerning Greenland. I agreed to a meeting of the various parties in Davos, Switzerland. Again, Trump always wants to take the meeting. That's something we've learned a lot about his style. As I expressed to everyone very plainly, Greenland is very imperative for national and world security. There can be no going back on that. Everyone agrees. So it doesn't seem like he's necessarily reversing his stance. The United States of America is the most powerful country anywhere on the globe by far. Much of the reason for this is a rebuilding of our military during my first term, which rebuilding continues at an even more expedited pace. We're the only power that can ensure peace throughout the world, and it is done quite simply through strength. President Trump. Now, last night we looked at some of Trump's comments from last week when he was talking about Greenland. And in particular, he said that China and Russia will take Greenland if we don't take Greenland, which is kind of leading a lot of people to believe that the U.S. has certain intelligence that's letting them know that they need to take this country or this piece of land before China and Russia do. But that could also be propaganda, because we want a lot of the things that Greenland has, aka rare earths, metals, minerals, etc. And so right now, I think the administration is trying to push the agenda that if we don't do it, the other guys are going to do it. I'm not sure if everyone believes in that. NATO definitely doesn't believe in that. That's why they've started to kind of become more aggressive around Trump's stance. But that's exactly what Bessent has been saying as well. Here's some more comments that he had this morning as well.
I think what the president wants to talk about, what I want to talk about, is that this is the 1-year anniversary of the president taking office. We have the strongest economy in the world. We have the strongest military in the world. And the U.S. is back. And this is what U.S. leadership looks like.
Before the president ever rests on his laurels and many times moving on to the next thing. And what I was leading to is I don't think it's a quid pro quo with Norway. I think it's, look, I've had 8 peace deals. I've settled them all through peace. This is essential for security for both the world, for the United States, for Greenland, for Denmark, for Europe. And one way or another, we got to get to where we're going. And I think that was what his point was. Do you agree with that?
100%. 100%. I think it's a complete canard. And if, like, there's any kind of equivalence with the Nobel Prize. This has been on the president's mind since his first term. It's been on the presidential mind for 150, 160 years. The U.S. has been trying to acquire Greenland. This is not something new, Joe.
We talked about that last night as well, the idea that the U.S. has been trying to acquire Greenland. There's been 4 other times. The most recent example was 1946, where the president offered $100 million worth of gold for Greenland, but ultimately we couldn't get the deal done. So, Bessent is saying, hey, there's a historical precedent for this. The problem is we haven't really engaged in this type of conversation for the past 70 years, and that's why people are thinking it came out of nowhere. But we have tried in the past. It has been unsuccessful, and now Trump is, I guess, going for it to make it successful.
And things like this happen all the time. It's happening right now with Diego Garcia in Mauritius and the UK. Territories change, and Denmark is not really in a position to defend Greenland. We fund NATO, most of NATO, so we're already defending it.
So, Joe, since 1980, the U.S. has spent 22 trillion more on defense than the rest of NATO has. 22 trillion. That is approximately 2/3 of our outstanding government debt. So while the Europeans were building schools, having health care, we have been defending the world. And I think the president believes they should be paying their fair share. And he is trying to get in front of this. He's trying to get in front of it because Greenland is strategically important. It's strategically important for his Golden Dome project to protect the U.S. And he's invited Canada into that if they want to pay their share. And it is important that the U.S. has control of Greenland, and that will stop any kind of a kinetic war. So why not preempt the problem before it starts?
And likely, in your view, it would end in some type of diplomatic event, not something more serious. I think that's the worst case scenario. And the president always talks on the front end, shock and awe, I think, and doesn't take anything off the table, working on the negotiations on the back end, or as a prelude to that.
Well, look, I think the president should take everyone should take the president at his word. And I think the other thing, too, is just like with Liberation Day last year, not you, Joe, but the media has gone into hysterics. The Europeans are going to sell their U.S. assets. U.S. is not a reliable partner. U.S. is a reliable partner. I can tell you, I hosted at Treasury last Monday a critical mineral summit to try to get the rest of the world to move with the speed that the U.S. is to avoid this chokehold that China has on critical minerals. So we had our G7 partners, Mexico, India, South Korea, and Australia there. And this is what U.S. leadership looks like, Joe.
There will be talk.
All right. So what are people thinking? What are your raw thoughts on this entire situation and how it's playing out? I mean, I think the overwhelming of people, 81% of you think we're going red today. We are already down 1.5% on the S&P. I don't know if we easily recover from that. But the majority of comments that I've consumed over the weekend, or at least perspectives and analysis, is that this is a aggressive overreach of power by the Trump administration. The threatening of tariffs makes it worse. The European Union has come together and said we're going to tariff 93 billion euros worth of goods if the United States tries to retaliate. Now, again, the EU can't really separate from the United States, just like we can't separate from China. So these threats are not necessarily filled with a lot of substance, but the fact that they have to engage in these threats, a lot of people are annoyed. And, the fact that Trump is making them kind of find ways to threaten one of their largest trading partners. Trump has had a very dismissive tone of NATO over the past 48 hours. I mean, really over the past 2 weeks, he's basically been saying, I don't care about NATO. I mean, this was one thing that we talked about last night. We didn't discuss this morning yet, but Trump did send a letter to the president of Norway yesterday. It's a real letter. And he's a little upset that he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. This is also something people can't believe. He said, "Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars, plus I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America." That's Trump's kind of America first framing there. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China. And why do they have the right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed 300 years ago, but we had a lot of boats landing as well. I've done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. So maybe this whole thing would have stopped if we just gave him the damn Nobel Peace Prize. But that was another thing that Trump said. And then there's a variety of things Trump said this morning as well. So here's another thing he said around Norway. This was earlier in the morning after getting off Air Force One.
If anybody thinks that Norway doesn't control the Nobel Prize, they're just kidding. They have a board, but it's controlled by Norway, and I don't care what Norway says. But
so he is obviously mad about that Nobel Peace Prize not coming to him. And then Trump introduced a board of peace that people can spend $1 billion, countries can offer $1 billion to get access to. This was announced yesterday. A lot of people are thinking this is like his competitor to the United Nations or potentially a new version of NATO. Here's what he said this morning around Macron if he doesn't join the board of peace.
Do you have any response to President Macron saying he will not join the board of peace?
oh, did he say that? Well, nobody wants him because he's going to be out of office very soon. So, that's all right. What I'll do is if they feel like Costo, I'll put a 200% tariff on his wines and champagnes, and he'll join. But he doesn't have to join. If he said that, you're probably giving it to me a little bit differently. But if he actually did say that, but as you know, he's going to be out of office in a few months.
Did you invite President Putin to join the...
Yes, he's one of the people, these are world leaders, and the answer is yes.
So Trump is saying, yeah, Putin is totally available to join the board of peace if he puts up $1 billion. Obviously, this stuff is very confusing. There's a lot of conflicting narratives when you have stuff like that. It's very shock value as it was back in April, right? Like, I mean, Trump literally brought out a board in that presentation when he was introducing the reciprocal tariffs and showing that each country, Zimbabwe, would pay 80%. Like, no, Zimbabwe can't afford to pay 80%. So a lot of this stuff didn't even feel realistic, but the market still reacted to it, and that ended up creating the buying opportunity. I wonder, and obviously I see a lot of people in the chat that are thinking that this is absolutely ridiculous. I wonder if the market's going to think it's ridiculous, and if the market's even going to believe in the ridiculous nature of it and create the buying opportunity that we had last year. I don't think we're there yet. I think if Trump continues to double down on the stuff, we can get there, but it doesn't feel like we're necessarily there yet. And obviously, if we get there, things could get pretty ugly. Here's what Trump said about Greenland on Air Force One today as well.
Greenland is very important. That's all right. What I'll do is if they felt that I deserved it and really wanted me to have the Nobel Prize, and I appreciate that. If anybody thinks that Norway doesn't control the Nobel Prize, they're just kidding. They have a board, but it's controlled by Norway, and I don't care what Norway says. But I really don't care about that. What I care about is saving lives. And I think I've saved tens of millions of lives. If you look at India, Pakistan, just as 2 nuclear powers, you look at so many of the countries that were in a 30, in some cases, a 35-year war, and they got it done. We stopped 8 wars, and maybe we'll be stopping a 9th very soon. We'll see. What do you think?
It's quite the way to start off 2026. It is quite the way to start off. And we still don't even have the Supreme Court ruling, which again, we might get in the next hour, and we'll see if that affects equity prices. NVIDIA right there down about 2.4%. Didn't think it would start like this, but here we go. You know, it is a midterm year. Midterm years tend to suck. And the last time Trump had a midterm year in 2018, we ended up having a pretty nasty S&P 500 year. Now, we were raising rates during that time. I think we're going to be cutting rates this year, hopefully. So that is one of the major differences. But if we're cutting rates and these bond yields don't change, it's almost like, what's the point? Like, if the 10-year doesn't go down, the mortgage rates don't go down. So cutting rates, realistically, the major impact is to unlock the housing market and get yields to come lower, which would also affect credit card rates, which, by the way, today is the day that Trump's supposed to have this credit card 10% APR law go into effect. I don't know if anything's going to happen today, given the events over the weekend. But I mean, if we're cutting rates this year and yields aren't coming down, it's almost like we're not even cutting rates. So I wonder if the sort of dynamics of the midterm year that historically are just not good. Last time we saw 2022 was pretty ugly. If that continues to play a role here. And this is the biggest geopolitical shock I think we've gotten over the past year, ever since Liberation Day. Question is, will it matter? And so let's do this question in the chat as well, because I think this is an interesting question. Do you think that 78% of you said we'll go red today? Do you think this will matter? What, today's January 20th, February, March, April, May. Yeah, I guess in like 4 months. Do you think this will matter to the stock market in, let's call it 3 to 4 months? AKA, will the impact of this Greenland tariff thing actually be so resounding that for the next 3 to 4 months, which is like a lifetime in the stock market, is it going to have an impact on equity prices? Is it going to have an impact on the geopolitical conversation? Is it going to actually have an impact on trade deficits? I mean, like, is it going to be the thing that it seems like it is today? By the way, Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery amend agreement to an all-cash transaction. That's another reason why Netflix is up. It looks like they are absolutely getting Warner Brothers, and this is probably what they're going to talk about in their earnings today. Warner Brothers right there down about 0.28% in the pre-market. It's kind of 50-50. Some people are saying, no, this is not going to matter. Well, now it's 70-30. 73% of people say it's not going to matter. See, I think all of us as retail are a bit desensitized to what we saw last year, and we kind of don't want to fall for biting into the taco, given we know that inevitably there will be a taco. By the way, MicroStrategy bought another 22,000 Bitcoin. Sailor continues to buy the dip. I don't know. In 4 months, does this matter? Is this relevant, or does Trump move on to something else? That, I mean, like, if he's talking about going for the midterms, how much of his base actually cares about Greenland versus affordability? Now, there might be a very strategic reason to make the country more affordable if we were to acquire Greenland, but like the average American that's voting and like struggling to pay their bills, I don't think they're thinking that deeply about the geopolitical ramifications of Greenland and rare earth minerals helping the United States for affordability. They're worried about affordability. They're worried about things that are affecting their day-to-day lives. And I mean, this entire foreign policy bonanza that we're in, it feels like it's a fundamentally different approach towards midterms that Trump was taking a couple of weeks ago when he was talking about credit card rates. Time will tell. Time will sell. Time will tell if this gets really ugly or not. But obviously today it feels a bit ugly. If it devolves into a broader trade war, eventually you have to call Trump's bluff. What does that look like? It could be ugly. Yeah, and it's like, you know, I get that he doesn't care anymore about NATO, but do we end up having a massive trade war with them? Some theories, I don't know if I fully agree with these theories, but some theories I read over the weekend are about Trump doing this to help the tech companies that have been fined to an oblivion and censored with all this regulations they have to deal with in the EU. And this is like a warning to the EU to like take off a lot of restrictions that they have on the tech companies, which would obviously help a lot of the US tech companies continue to grow in those areas, which is good for the overall AI trade. It props up the market by scaring them with this whole Greenland thing. Now, I don't really know if that's the best theory that's out there. I also don't know if Trump's doing the bidding of the tech companies by establishing a global trade war around Greenland. I think he actually wants Greenland, but that is one theory that's out there. Japan's finance minister says we want markets to calm down. I mean, if I was Japan's finance minister, yeah, I would want markets to calm down because these bond yields are getting a bit out of hand here. And it's starting to be a bit ugly. Bitmine, they bought more Ethereum today. Did they? 3.48 thousand of the ETH token supply, 4.203 million. I don't know exactly how many ETH they bought, but they did buy some more Ethereum today. Yeah, Palantir has a deal. I think Karp is live right now. Let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, he's live. Let's see if we can see what he's talking about right here.
Take enterprises in general, not all enterprises, tend to want to, over time, become like every other enterprise. So if you take five, A enterprise and B enterprise and C enterprise, they're in the same market. Their tech infrastructure is trying to make them into the same enterprise. They have the same org chart.
Sure.
They have presumably roughly the same, they don't have the same data and infrastructure. And what you learn on the battlefield is that, and in life is that's not particularly valuable. What is very valuable is an enterprise can do something no enterprise in the world could do. And so that is the goal of every single military intelligence service. In fact, all these intelligence services and militaries have their own specialization. And so when we went to commerce, like what we're saying is, how can we make your insurance company, the way you underwrite, how can we make that to your tribal knowledge about underwriting? How can we transform this to knowledge everyone has to a knowledge only you have and with efficiencies that no one else has? So as an example, on the battlefield, one of the most important issues is how do you acquire data, process it, and then put it into a framework where it can be actioned, either from an intelligence perspective. Yeah. So just obviously, what does a business do? In the end of the day, what is a business doing? I mean, it is, so for example, especially in anything underwriting, banking, hospital intakes.
It's information.
It's information. It's sorting the information in a way that you have a distinct advantage over other people who are similarly situated, and that advantage can't be eviscerated easily. And so de facto, for what you're doing on the battlefield with our products, without getting, I'm happy to, is like what you're doing with Ontology and Foundry, in some cases on the battlefield, but definitely in like commercial organizations across the world, but especially.
All right, so we'll get some more quotes from Karp after the entire conversation. I'm sure they asked him potentially about this Greenland situation and geopolitics, and we'll try to get some of his quotes on that as well. Palantir stock continues to hold a pretty high multiple right here, 167. It is down about 2%. Even at 167, the stock is at a $400 billion market cap. They've got earnings coming up on February 2nd, which is going to be really important. Do you have some analysts thinking they can get to 70, 80% growth, that they can actually guide for that? Obviously, that would be incredible. The question is, can they keep up those growth numbers? And it's the same for a lot of these stocks. Can Apple keep up their growth? Can Google, Amazon, Microsoft, all these names that have held up the AI trade, can they keep it up? One concern that I read a couple articles over the weekend that a lot of people are having, this is not a new this is not a new concern necessarily, but it is something that's being thrown out there, is the scaling of LLMs and how fast they're going to be able to meaningfully create that 0 to 1 type of move again. Like ChatGPT 3 to 4 was a big deal. ChatGPT 4 to 5 was like kind of a big deal, but not really. So you've got a lot of people wondering like, hey, are we going to meaningfully accelerate the LLM capacity? Elon is pretty damn bullish over the weekend, and he's been tweeting a lot of things about how LLMs continue to scale. But that is another resounding, broader bear case that people have started to question a bit more deeply until we get that next model that is the step change that we've been looking for. Obviously, Anthropic has done a phenomenal job from a coding perspective, and now their co-work product that they released last week, a lot of potentially SaaSes, you could argue, have been mitigated in terms of their overall ability to succeed, given what Claude released last week. I know Path got hit about 10% because of that. Now, maybe unnecessarily, but Path right there down another 3% in the pre-markets, likely because of what Claude released last week. And Sequoia, which invested in OpenAI early, they are putting an investment in Anthropic, which is quite incredible, because if you know anything about Sequoia, they don't invest in competitors. But the fact that even they are recognizing how strong Anthropic is in the broader AI race, I mean, it looks like if any company is going to go public next year, it's going to be Anthropic. And this one's looking at a $350 billion valuation. It might end up being a $400 billion valuation when this name ends up going public. I totally rely on LLM, so I agree they are growing. Yeah, I mean, look, I use an LLM every single day. The major use case, though, I think is still stuck in the personal assistants, and we haven't necessarily seen that yet. Obviously, the Apple-Google partnership is going to be hopefully the big thing that gets billions of people to start. I mean, there's still probably billions of people that don't even know what an LLM is. But, outside of humanoid robotics and self-driving, which we don't really have a robotics thesis yet, but we do have self-driving at scale that's getting better and better. The LLM chatbot is the only real use case, and we haven't really seen it expand into sort of AI agentic personal assistants, which is going to be really important. By the way, speaking of Tesla, my dad officially is getting FSD. I mean, he had the month free trial, and I talked to him over the weekend, and he was like, I can't live without it. He's like, I really can't live without it. And, my dad's cheap. Like my dad does not like spending money. So the fact that he was like, no, pay the stupid $100 a month, like we need it. It was quite incredible, because after a month of using it, you start asking, why should I drive again? Like, this thing is damn near perfect. It's not fully perfect, but it's getting there. And eventually it's going to be perfect. That's like that should be the way the scaling laws end up playing out. So yeah, he's officially using FSD now. And I think he's going to be using it for the rest of his life. Now, Elon has transitioned the company into subscription only, which I think is beneficial for his pay package to be able to get more subscribers. Also, because one could argue that, $8,000 for a lifetime subscription or whatever might be too cheap for the value that FSD is going to provide. And eventually they're going to raise that 100 to like 150. And they know that the LTV on the customer's lifetime value is going to be greater if they actually charge the monthly subscription from like a SaaS business model perspective versus like a flat out subscription. And maybe even Elon's recognizing that this is just too good to give away for free. So yeah, I think Tesla continues to prove that their AI is one of the best real world use cases that's out there. Elon is, I see people asking about this. Elon is, I think he's kind of joking about buying Ryanair, which is an airline. I think Ryanair is an airline in Europe, right? Yeah, it's a European airline. Elon is mad because the CEO of the company said that they don't want to have Starlink integrated into their airline. And Elon's like, should I buy Ryanair and put someone whose actual name is Ryan in charge? It's the spirit of, really? Is it the spirit of Europe? Okay, well then it should be pretty cheap for Elon to buy. But over the weekend, he started doubling down on this idea of buying Ryanair. And I think he's partly joking, but I also think he's kind of pissed off that the CEO keeps saying Starlink isn't important for their airlines. And maybe he ends up buying it. How much is this thing worth? How much is Ryan Airlines worth? 35. Oh, they're public. Oh shit, they're public. Over the past year, their stock's up 55%, 35 billion. Okay, so that is going to cost a little bit of money. It's not like Elon's not good for it. I think he could find the money somewhere. But yeah, this might be something he's trying to do. John says, I bought FSD in 2020 for 8K Model 3, transferred it to a new 2024 Model Y, can never not have it. Yeah, once you experience it, man, it's tough. It's tough. Like my dad had it for a month and then the trial ended last week. And I told him to upgrade last week. And he was like, I don't need it. And then I went home on Saturday and I was like, so you still don't need it? He was like, just pay for it. I need it. I was like, well, it's really good. And at his age too, he knows he doesn't feel like literally driving every day. And so just monitoring the vehicle is easier to navigate. S&P 1.53%. All right, we got 7 minutes. 7 minutes until this market opens. Yes, I do believe we will have Technical Tuesday today. We will see Jason's thoughts. Again, I think the technicals on all these stocks, they're going to be a little tainted, guys, because this is the first day of potentially a multi-week / multi-month downturn, or it's the first day of a head fake, and we might have a few more days of red, even a few more weeks of red, but it doesn't necessarily, stand up. So ASTS, which broke out to 120 last week, and now it's at 112. It's like, first of all, that's not even that crazy of a decline. Like it's been on a massive tear. So like a 3% downturn is not that crazy. But does the chart get destroyed just because it's taking a 3% downturn? Not for what anything ASTS said or did, but because of Trump. Like none of these charts are fundamentally broken because of something they did. It's all because of this 10% Denmark or Greenland thing in terms of a tariff that we don't even know is going to last. So I think the technicals, we're going to do the technicals, but I don't know how much we can trust in them either. Just given there's a external macro event that is now geopolitically affecting all these stocks. Even if obviously SoFi probably doesn't deserve to go to 24 just because we had Greenland tariffs being imposed. Yeah, a chart's not going to be able to predict Trump's next tweet anyway. And that's the thing, right? Like Trump's tweet, Trump's next tweet either doubles down or de-escalates, which we saw this story happen last year. And if it ends up being the same, Micron right there down about 0.26%, then that is going to have an implication on the markets. So we'll look at some TT. We'll try to see how Jason's thinking of these charts. But I think a lot of these price actions over the next couple of days are really going to be determined by fundamentals, or not even fundamentals, by the fundamental case of what's happening geopolitically, more so than valuations. Now, were valuations running hot on certain names? Of course. I don't think we can deny that. But Rocket Lab's not down 3% because the valuation was hot, Rocket Lab's down because of a 10% tariff on Greenland. So I don't even know if you can say Rocket Lab's valuation here is the biggest concern to the market. It depends on if Europe responds. If they eventually get to a point where they are tired of Trump stuff and cut off most diplomatic relationships, and the market is in real trouble. I agree with that. My question is, like, could Europe ever cut off diplomatic ties with the United States in any meaningful capacity? Like, I don't believe that's possible. Just like we can't cut off any level of diplomacy or trade relationships with China, because like we need them as much as, you know, Trump wants to be separate from them. So I don't know. It really does feel like they're in a quagmire. I mean, but then when Trump tweets stuff like this, it doesn't really help. This is another picture he tweeted this morning. This is him sitting with all the European leaders. That was a picture that came out last year. And on the chart right there, you can see America, Canada, and Venezuela and Greenland are all wrapped in the American flag. I mean, that's not really helping. Yeah, I don't know. That is not AI. That is literally what he tweeted this morning. Denmark spokesperson: decision to divest U.S. treasuries is rooted in poor U.S. government finances, not directly related to ongoing rift between the U.S. and Europe. All right, so this is another issue that we have going on. Whereas, and what's his name? Bessent tried to downplay this, but you have a lot of people saying the Europeans are getting ready to dump U.S. treasuries. The Europeans own a lot of U.S. treasuries. I think the UK itself owns, even though it's not necessarily in the EU anymore, but they own like 850 billion of our treasuries. So now you got a Denmark spokesperson coming out saying, hey, we're selling some of our U.S. treasuries, but it's not because of the rift between U.S. and Europe. It's because of not trusting the United States government's capital allocation. I don't necessarily believe that. I think it more so has to do with the events that have been happening over the past 72 hours. But nonetheless, this is also one of the reasons why our 10-year is spiking. You got Japan that's probably eventually going to have to sell treasuries, even though they're saying they're not going to. But if their treasuries start spiking, I mean, they're going to need money. Where are they going to get the money from? They're going to have to dump U.S. treasuries. China has not really dumped treasuries yet. But at any moment, China can decide. I think China owns about $1 trillion of treasuries as well. Brazil already dumped 60 billion. That's correct. And then you've got Europe, which, you know, if they do decide to meaningfully dump treasuries, it's not the best thing in the world. Now, granted, where is that money going to go? I mean, one could argue that money would just go back into U.S. stocks, which would actually be good for the stock market. But also, if Europe just says, hey, we're not going to touch anything from the United States, obviously that could not necessarily be the best thing for us. So we've got a lot of conflicting narratives, a lot of things going back and forth. How low can software go? Software is not in a good situation. I think a lot of these stocks actually are very cheap, but nonetheless, the narrative is not on their side. So you've got narratives around certain sectors that are not the best. This high beta rally, does this continue? You got corporate earnings coming up like Netflix today. That's catching a little bit of a bid. Is that going to be enough to withstand the 10% tariff drama that's taking place? You got the S&P down 1.4%, 681. We are basically where we were at on December 31st. I think we ended the year at 682. We're at 681.50 right now. I mean, the entire last 20 days has been reversed, not on individual growth stocks that are still up 40 to 50%, some of them up 70, 80%, but on the S&P, no progress as per this 1.5% decline. And so I think when you put all that together, now is the question to see how the market reacts. And in the next 30 seconds, we are going to see hundreds of billions of dollars either come into this market or come out of this market. And we're going to have to react and adapt to what ends up playing out as we are entering 2026 with a brand new agenda around Greenland and tariffs. Also, in the next 30 minutes, we might get a Supreme Court decision. So we'll keep an eye on that. And if we get one, we'll see how the market ultimately reacts to it. January 20th, Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P 500 ends down 1.49% as we get into the open. Tesla down about 2%. Rocket Lab down 2%. Netflix ends up holding on to some of the green. Zeta down 3%. NVIDIA down 2.3%. Pretty much similar to the pre-markets with this price action. We'll see if this stuff takes a gap down across the board, or if we kind of normalize at these levels. SoFi down 2.5%, TSM down 0.5%, Rubrik down 2.6%, Salesforce down 1.2%. Again, S&P, a little bit of a green candle right there at 1.39% down from 1.4%. Apple is down 0.5%, Microsoft down 2%, Nvidia again 2.26%. Robinhood, he touched 102 this morning. Robinhood right now is at 105, so a little bit of recovery from those pre-market lows. Roblox is down 3.2%. VG is down 3.3%. Intel up. Wow. All right. American semiconductor manufacturing, that ends up going green. Amcor is a little bit of green candle, but that one's still down 1.46%. Tesla did hit 420. That's at 425. You do have another red candle right there, 2.7%. That is down. Palantir, we were at 167. We are still at 167. That is down 2.2%. The Googs is down 2.6%. Amazon is down 3%. S&P trying to get a green candle right there. That's down 1.4%. The Qs are down 1.7%. Obviously, tech-heavy indices are getting hit right here. Rocket Lab, actually, look at that green candle. 80 cents away from going green. I mean, if Rocket Lab turns green, you got nothing that it's standing in its way to continue getting momentum. Did ASTS go green? ASTS very close, 40 cents away. I mean, the space names continue to be in high demand. OSS, that's down 6%. Lemonade is down 3%. Oscar is down 3%. Copen's down 6%. Rocket Companies, Mortgage Play, that's down 5%. Celsius goes green. I guess to negotiate with Greenland, we need a lot of energy. That stock somehow is green. GE Veranova went green. Duolingo, that was down 0.24% as that one's getting red. Wow, New Era Energy is halted. Or is it Next Era Energy? Oh no, New Era. NUA. Oh, I've seen this ticker over the past couple of days. NUAI. A lot of people have been talking about this one. Yep, this is halted, up about 30%, $304 million market cap. This is another small cap name in the energy space. The rare earth names continue to get some love. USAR, that's up 8.2%. MP, that is down 1.4%. So it's very, I guess, specific to the stock you're in. CRML, that one also goes red. The bull thesis for the rare earth names is that if we don't get Greenland, there's going to be a lot more domestic manufacturing of it. So those companies get a bid. There's also a bull case that if we do get Greenland, it just overall props up the entire industry. But USAR, that one's up 8.4%. And potentially investors are trying to hide out in that name right there. NVIDIA is getting ready to lose 180 potentially, down 2.2%. Trying to hold on to that level. Robinhood back to 104.50. VG is down 2%. Roblox down 3.7%. Where is Amazon? USAR announced a deal in France. That's why, okay. Yeah, that is weird that that one went green with everyone else going red. Amazon right there, 232. That's down. USAR news in France. I'll get that exact headline. That one's keeping them up today. Lockheed Martin, is that one green or the defense contractors green? Yeah, USAR 3,750 TPY rare earth metal alloy plant in France. All right, so that one is keeping that elevated. LMT, wow, Lockheed Martin goes green. How about Raytheon? You're seeing the defense contractors potentially get a bid on the fear that we might enter into a war, I guess, and that's why that's up. Palantir even getting a green candle right there. Grab goes green. Grab got a couple of upgrades over the weekend. Bank of America said 620. I think another person, Benchmark, came out and said $7. I know the stock is not really moving, but the difference between Grab and PayPal is PayPal is stuck and every analyst is downgrading PayPal. Grab is stuck. Every analyst, if you go on tip ranks, it's like 15 analysts are upgrading it from $6 to $8. So I think it's a matter of time, but I know the stock is not necessarily moving in the right direction. But every analyst is like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. This stock should be higher. Rocket Lab goes green, baby. 96.84. Look at that. Rocket Lab goes green. AMD goes green. 232. Maybe Nvidia is going to follow suit. Novo's still red. That's down 3%. That's another European company. Weeble's down below $8. eToro, I've got a lot of questions on this one. I think fundamentally it is cheap. If you look at their EBITDA to enterprise value, I don't know if the brokerages are going to have the best year this year. So I'm a little concerned of the overall sector, like having a massive move up. But yes, eToro I do think is cheap, but I do not have a position in these guys. ASTS, that one basically going green. That's 116. How about Meta? Did anyone buy Meta today? Meta 606. It touched 600 for a hot second. Touched it for a hot second. Zeta, did we go green? I think we went green on Zeta. Zeta is very close to going green, 2 cents away, $20.22. How about BMNR? That one's probably down. BMNR is indeed down 8.2%. because of Ethereum. MicroStrategy down 6.7% because of Bitcoin. Coinbase is that one down. Coinbase is also down 4%. Okay, interesting. So your crypto names are getting hit. The SanDisks of the world are hitting all-time highs, 431, even with the Greenland tariffs. Micron, wow, I think that's an all-time high on Micron. All-time high is 374. We're at 372. We are very close. Almost a $420 billion market cap for Micron. That's just incredible. So the memory names are not slowing down. You did have Bessent kind of calm down the markets a little bit today, not in any meaningful way to divert from Trump, but he did say that people shouldn't panic right here. Amcor, that goes green. Intel and Amcor go green. Rocket Lab once again trying to get. Rocket Lab actually touched. I think it touched 97. Yeah, it touched 97.75, 96.50 right here. Apple still red, Google still red, and the S&P still red. Rocket Lab, SanDisk, USAR, and Netflix, and ASTS, Intel, Amcor, and Micron are green. Everything else kind of in the gutter. D-Wave, Quantum down 6% today. Verizon down half. I mean, surprising, Verizon's down 0.5%. You would think that would go up on a day like this. HIMS is down 3%. ASML down 2%. Now, ASML has had a good run over the past couple of weeks. PayPal, you would think at 60, this one was bottoming, but it is not. That's at 55.97, down 1.62. AppLovin, that's down 5% on the short report. Broadcom's down 2.3. That's actually not too bad for Broadcom. Even Nebius, I mean, the fact that it's holding 100, I know it's down 7%, but at least it's holding that 100 level. Oracle, wow, Oracle. This was at 205 last week. That's at 184. That got hit. The VIX is up today. Archer's down 2%. Joby's down 1.3. Fiserv's down 0.5%. Duolingo just turned green. GE Vernova at 687. Ondas is ripping. They did get a big price target today, 1278. That's up 5%. HC Wainwright gave them $25. And this is the second price target in that $20 range. Wow, they doubled their price target. They went from 12 to 25 on this price target. Some of the institutional guys getting pretty bullish on Ondas. Yeah, these high beta names, I mean, they're not necessarily like straight red. You're not seeing a full-on red sort of general headwind across all these guys. Is this a bear trap? I mean, it could be. We do have that potential Supreme Court decision in 22 minutes. TE Energy, that's another one that's up 2.4%. What about Bloom Energy? Bloom goes green. Wow. Bloom is one of the most high beta names that is out there. I mean, if this Trump 10% Greenland thing cannot get the high beta names to go down, I don't know what's going to get them to go down. Now, maybe it's a little bit of a bull trap here, but my goodness, like Amazon's down 3%, Google's down 2%, but Bloom Energy's up 3%. I mean, that's just incredible. Rocket Lab wants 100. Rocket Lab wants 100. This is so weird. I agree. It's definitely weird. I mean, my theory on this over the past couple of weeks has been that fund managers massively underperformed the S&P 500 last year. Retail obviously massively outperformed, really realistically because of April and May and buying the dip during Liberation Day. And I think some of these fund managers are saying, screw it, we have to allocate more than like 5 to 10% of the overall net assets we manage into high beta if we want alpha this year. ASTS going green again. Now that's a really risky thing to do. If you manage $500 million to take 100 million of it and put it into stocks like Bloom, which again are not horrible companies. It's just obviously they are trading at valuations that are, one could argue, nosebleed. But that's where the alpha's been. And so maybe you got a bunch of fund managers saying I don't think this is retail. I don't think retail is pumping up Ondas and Bloom. Are they a big part of it? Yeah, but I mean, for them to go up on a day like this, I feel like there's some more institutional money that's associated with it. Micron, new all-time highs, 375. 375. OSS, I mean, even a stock like OSS, you would think this one small cap gets hit. It fell to 980, right up to $11, up 3.28%. And there really is a good fundamental thesis around OSS, but they need a pretty big government contract to continue expanding the valuation. But they got a good prototype a couple of weeks ago, and edge compute continues to be a good theme. And once again, that word, theme, edge compute is a theme. OSS is one of, I would say, 5 names that's really leading in that theme. That's at an attractive valuation, given it hasn't really become super big yet. It's trading at 4 times sales. That's not that crazy, even though it is a small cap. And maybe money is being allocated into that theme more than into earnings from a company like Amazon. Amazon down 3% on the day. It's pretty incredible. Oklo is at 96. That one goes up on the day, up 1.2%. SMR, 1.68%. Hoodie, still down 3.2, got to 106, but it's not as bad as it was at 5 a.m. when it was touching 102. NVIDIA, did we go below 180? Wow. AMD going green made me think NVIDIA, AMD just went red. It popped up a little bit, but it's not as red as NVIDIA. Look at that. NVIDIA 4% down. Huh. Micron and SanDisk are pumping. The only reason these guys have the amount of business they're getting is because of NVIDIA. And NVIDIA is down 4%, 179.90 on NVIDIA. Julian says, my friend is the CEO of eToro. I spoke with him last week and said he's completely focused on scaling the company. I've never seen him so focused. I'd bet on him, of course, macro dependent. Okay, well, it's nice to have a friend who's the CEO of eToro. His name is Yoni, right? So I guess Yoni is your friend. Yeah, I mean, look, I watched Tanner's video on it yesterday. 1.8 billion enterprise value, doing 800 million in revenue. Obviously, it's cheap. It's really hard to argue this thing is. I mean, it trades at a price to sales of 0.16. It's not even at a 1 times price of sales. So is taking a shot on this name, if the fundamentals are decent, the craziest thing in the world? No, I just think the brokerages need a good year. Hood, Webull, SoFi, even all of them, to get the catalyst that they had last year. So we got to see. But yes, eToro, I do agree fundamentally. I mean, the stock is cheap. Question is, do they have the catalyst on their side? Palantir right there, that's down 2%. Amcor, that's up a little bit, up 0.5%. Microsoft at 453, and then Apple, that's down 1% as well. BMNR, is this one still hit? This one recovering a little bit. It was down 9, now it's down 7. Not a massive recovery, but a little bit. TMC, the metals company, that one catching a bid. That's up 2.3%. Micron again hitting those all-time highs at 376. Rocket Lab just went red, 98 to 95. Incredibly volatile. You thought this one was going for 100. And then it gets rejected at those levels. Cloudflare, that's down 2%. Put in the chat if you bought anything, or if you sold covered calls, if you bought any puts. I don't think today's the day to buy puts on the S&P. I mean, look, if this thing continues to get worse, obviously puts will print. But the day to buy puts on the S&P was literally any of the last 15 days when the markets were rocketing up, because the premiums you were paying were a lot lower. But when people want to buy puts after a move has happened, I mean, you're just paying a lot of premium for something that might have not bottomed, but might not necessarily print in the future if it kind of stabilizes here. I see a lot of Zeta. I see Ondas. I see Bitcoin. Bought app at 507. I mean, that had to be last night, right? Or this morning? Well, you're already up a decent chunk on that. 540 right here on App Lovin'. Again, they had a 30-page short report come out last night that was not the best for them. Bought GitLab, bought Grab, BE, OSS, Ondas, and Amazon. BE again right there at 148. That one just went red. Ondas is having a massive pump today. Grab at 436 I bought. France's foreign minister. France supports EU Parliament's wish to suspend all US-EU trade deals. Okay, I don't think the EU Parliament is actually going to suspend all US-EU trade deals as much as they say they will. I don't think that's necessarily possible. But I guess they will continue to make those statements. About some Palantir, Intel, TMC. All right, so a lot of these names, I mean, people seem to be buying the dip on. MicroStrategy down 6%. I see that out there. TSSI, this is Dell's supplier in Texas, if I'm not wrong. That one's down 5% on the day. Redwire and Zeta. Where is Redwire? Is that red? That is down 3%. Zeta, again, I continue to believe the stock is cheap. And I do think after earnings, it's going to make a big move once they announce profitability. But the one thing about Zeta that's annoying is that it's in the SaaS space, which shouldn't be annoying because it's a great company that's beating and raising and executing. But if the entire SaaS sector is getting hit, then that one might just fall in that category. CRML, that goes green as well on the day. I see a bunch of metas as well that people are buying. I bought Iran. Are we at 50 on Iran? We were at 54. I mean, dude, 54 is not even that crazy. I know it's down 6%, but I mean, this stock went from 45 to 59 last week. if it takes a breather at 54. Like a lot of these names feel like regular breathers, even if it's been inspired by the Trump tariffs on Greenland. But these are not like April prices by any sense of the imagination. Let me check fear and greed. We were at greed on Friday. We are at neutral. Wow, we've actually come down. We're at 62. Now we are down to 52. I bought grab spreads. I bought ARM. The ARM CEO was on today. We'll take a listen to some of the stuff that he said. Continues to be pretty bullish about AI. Bought Intel, Cypher. Oh yeah, all those data center players are getting a bit hit. Cypher right there, that's down another 7% on the day. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff feels like almost like a regular red day in the market, more so than a red day inspired by some massive geopolitical event that is changing the trajectory of humanity, even though it might end up being that intense. App 11 right there is still down 5%. The S&P is still down 1.3%. All right, so the Supreme Court decision in 15 minutes, we might have an answer on that. So we're going to keep an eye on that, and hopefully in the next 15, we actually get a resolution to this tariff stuff. It would be quite ironic if Trump threatens all these tariffs over the weekend and the Supreme Court says they're illegal. But, I mean, if we don't get a decision on that, then I guess we're going to be waiting for a longer time. I don't think this is over yet. Yeah, I don't think this is over yet either. But it doesn't feel like liberation lows. It doesn't even feel like March lows of last year. Like, remember March is when shit started to hit the fan? Like, it doesn't feel like that yet. 1% down on the S&P is not necessarily going to be triggering that. Unless it's a massive bull trap and we're getting ready to feel that type of pain. Amit, would you buy Amazon here? I've been buying Amazon since 212. Like, yeah, I think Amazon's cheap at 232. This is still one of the lowest EV to EBITDAs in the entire Mag 7. And, you know, obviously we've talked about the catalyst with AWS accelerating and robotics being a catalyst to increase operating margins. But once again, I mean, like, if this is not over yet, it's hard for anything to be I have to buy the dip type of opportunity today. And just no one knows if it's over or not. Now, you could have a hypothesis on Taco, and this is not going to be resolved soon, but like no one fully knows. And so should Amazon go to 220? No, but could it get there? Of course. If Trump really doubles down and goes from 10% to 20% on the tariffs for whatever reason. I mean, and this is exactly what happened last year, which is what caught a lot of people off guard. Now, at the end of the day, he ended up tacoing and told us literally when to buy the dip. I don't know if we have an exact replica of that, but that could be something that ends up playing out. NVIDIA right there, 180.22 again, as that is red. Did you ever start your SPY in Bitcoin DCA? I have not. I probably should do that. I need to just open a separate account and put money in there to buy. I think I'll put both in the same account. I'll put SPY and Bitcoin in the same account and just say, all right, we're going to DCA this every month. I'll start that today. We'll officially buy it on the market close later today. We'll do that. eToro turns green. Lemonade jumped a little bit. Amazon is not high beta. 100% Amazon's not high beta, but it is Amazon. And all the Mag 7, ironically, it's not been good that they're not high beta because they've been getting rotated out of Apple right there. That's down 1.29%. More rumors of the Apple foldable iPhone coming out later this year have started to surface. Seems like that might be Apple's next attempt to really transform what the iPhone looks like. Accelera, that's down 1.4%. Duolingo goes a little green. Mercado Libre, that's up a little bit. So it's the international stocks like Mercado, Grab. How about Nubank? Is that green? Yeah, Nubank. I guess international is getting a little bit of a bid right here as well, as all of those are holding green. And Tesla. Yes, Tesla as well. Tesla right there, 425. Down 2.7. Ondas, are we still moving? Yep, 1321. That's up 8.4%. Why? Silver pumping. Well, I guess more geopolitical instability is good for gold and silver. I mean, the fact that gold is pushing 5,000 right now is kind of crazy. Let me pull up the market cap for these. See what they look like in comparison. So gold's at 32 trillion. Silver's at 5.3. Freaking NVIDIA It's at 4.3 trillion. And then Google's at 3.9. Gold and silver. Dude, it's just so crazy because, this Bitcoin's at 1.8. This entire bull market of the past couple of years, I just don't think people have cared that much about gold and silver. We've cared more about tech stocks that are putting up phenomenal earnings. And obviously they've outperformed gold and silver, depending on where you got in them. But this past year has been a gold and silver year. Norway can't participate in Trump's Board of Peace initiative as it's presented today. Deputy Foreign Minister tells the Post. Okay, so you've got Trump's beef with Norway heating up. Again, he did send them a letter over the weekend signaling that he is upset they did not pick him to get a Nobel Peace Prize. Amazon right there at 233, Apple at 252. A lot of the EU leaders obviously have come out and have shown their disdain for these tariffs. Macron has been the most vocal, the French president, on kind of how this looks like. Wow, look at the heat map. You would think it's not as ugly, but look at this. It's pretty ugly. Now, the high beta names are not necessarily feeling it. You see Micron right there up a little bit, Walmart getting a little bit of love. That Walmart officially went into the NASDAQ today, or they will go into the NASDAQ today, and replace AbbVie. Or no, they're replacing AstraZeneca. But this is all the red that we're seeing. France President Macron says we need more Chinese direct investment in Europe in some key sectors. See, this is the scary part. Macron just said that at the World Economic Forum. You had Carney talking about, we need to embrace China for the New World Order. Like, China is not the answer. There's something called freedom that China doesn't necessarily love to embrace. And I don't know how smart it is for the Europeans and the Canadians to think that embracing those guys are the better bet than the United States. Now, we haven't been the friendliest of neighbors to them. I get it. But I don't know if China's the answer.
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
See, why is he saying it like that? The new world order. It's like, bro, what are we talking about? China becoming the dominant force and them imposing the values of the world that should be applied? Because, I don't know if we want to live in a world where China gets to call all the shots. Not saying the U.S. is perfect. And I know a lot of you guys probably disagree with my framing of the United States and freedom, and that's okay. We can have a disagreement there. I think the U.S. is championing the ideas of freedom more than a lot of other countries across the world. It's okay. We're allowed to disagree. But I don't know if China's version of human rights should be imposed across the world. 180.4 on NVIDIA. Yeah, this continues to be a rotation out of Mag 7 and high tech into some of these beta names. I mean, the fact that Micron 379, bro. Goodness gracious. 379.60. Who's in Micron? Who's selling? Who's taking some profits on Micron? Or who's regretting that they took profits already? And better yet, who's buying Micron right here? Palantir did get the deal with HD Hyundai. That's an extension of the partnership they've had for a long time. So that partnership continues to be extended. And that's a good deal. That's a shipbuilding company. Palantir already has a shipbuilding contract with the Navy, so it makes a lot of sense that they signed that partnership and extended it here today. I don't think we have a number on it, though. The last number we had was 45 million a while ago. This was back in 2023 or 2024. So I don't think we had an exact number on how much the deal is worth today. Wow, a bunch of you guys saying you sold already. Sold at 100, sold at 115, sold at 210. Micron's still above the 9 EMA. Yeah, and I mean, just look at this chart on the year to date. I mean, this thing is crazy, dude. Absolutely crazy. 381 it touched this morning. Duolingo did break 150. Sold Micron at 87. Oh my gosh. Admit China doesn't bully anyone. Look, we can have different agreements on or disagreements on China. Like, We don't have to get into a debate about it, but as an American, I have a certain view of China that's not necessarily the most friendly, and that's okay. Other people can have different views. I'm sure there's Europeans that don't have a friendly view of the United States. That is okay. But in my perspective, I don't know if giving China the ability to set the standards of how things play out is the best idea. Now, you might have a lot of people that say, well, look, China treats their citizens better than the United States, yada, yada. Like, that's a reasonable debate to have. But the point is, the fact that we're even having this debate because some of our latest allies are getting pushed towards China because maybe they feel oscillated by the United States. I mean, yeah, that's something where Trump has to come to a conclusion on like, hey, am I pushing these guys to China? Am I pushing them to the quote unquote new world order? Or are these guys just completely losing their minds and that's why they're leaving the United States? And I think there's a valid perspective on both sides. But obviously, this is going to have a totally different perspective on where the world goes from here. All right, 4 minutes until the Supreme Court thing comes out. Let's see if this ends up playing out. AMD at 233. Hood is at 106.17. And Intel, is that one gapped up still? Intel 49. Wow, 47 to 49, 45 to 49 from the pre-markets. VIX is holding steady. That's correct. That one's not necessarily getting hit as bad. But AMD holding on to 2 there. So AMD goes green. NVIDIA should be following suit, but it's not. Wow, NVIDIA 179.80 cannot follow suit. Cannot hold up with AMD. Let's see if we can get some of their macro headlines. Trade Secretary U.S. Greer says U.S. trade deficit with the EU may exceed U.S. trade deficit with China for 2025. Again, we saw the France foreign minister have a quote, France supports the EU's parliament's wish to suspend the U.S. trade deal. How many ETH did Bitmine buy? I can't see how much they bought. They bought... Did they buy anything to this last week? No, they didn't, right? I'm looking at the press release right now. Oh, they did. 35,000 ETH. Okay, 35,000. Once again, one of the lowest levels that they've bought in a while. 35,000 ETH. Okay, cool. So I guess you've got them buying a little bit more. Now, Tom Lee, while we wait for the Supreme Court thing, continues to be making the argument that, well, we are going to have a 20% drawdown at some point, and he's not necessarily the most bullish on the first half of the year. He continued to reiterate his thoughts this morning, but he still thinks things can get kind of ugly, which begs the question, I mean, if we do have that, then what ends up happening to Ethereum at that point, right? If it actually ends up getting that bad. Let me see if I can pull this up right here. Yeah, okay, let's pull this up right here. And then we'll keep an eye on the Supreme Court, as that should be coming out really soon.
Yet trades at half the multiple of Costco. I think there's a lot of room to re-rate those stocks higher.
If the sort of macro outlook is worse than expected, well, either way, as and when we have this market correction that you foresee, let's assume it's 20% for argument's sake for the S&P 500, will those stocks act like a staples company and fall less than the market? Or are they still in the growth company high beta stage such that when we have this correction this year, the NVIDIAs of this world will fall more than the S&P 500?
Yeah, it's a good question, because what will lead in the correction are crowded trades, because that's when people have to de-risk. So it makes sense that, oh, well, the Mag 7 are the large holdings. Will people de-risk? But as you know, when people get nervous, maybe they go into the Mag 7. And so to me, it's possible that the non-US stocks could be the ones where you see correction, because that's where there's a lot of money that's been made. I mean, non-US stocks did far better last year than US. And so if there's trade escalations and uncertain about the global economic outlook, maybe that's where the correction could be greater.
And so that's, you mean across the piece, or do you mean specifically tech like ASMLs and TSMCs of this world?
Oh, I think more broadly. So it could be MSCI, ACWI.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right, still waiting on Supreme. Let's
This
pull
episode
up a couple of things here.
About here, and the key tariff decision in the Supreme Court that could come this hour. We'll bring you the headlines as soon as we get them. Plus, we've got a great lineup for you of guests from Davos, Switzerland, including Citigroup CEO Jane Fraser, Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff, Micron CEO Sanjay Mehrotra. For now, David, back over to you.
Okay, yes, Sarah, we're going to start with tariffs. Of course, that threat of a new round of levies because of Greenland, essentially, the fact that the president wants the U.S. to own it, so to speak. We await a potential game-changing tariff decision as well from the Supreme Court. And Eamon Javers has all of it for us from Washington. Eamon.
Yeah, David, a lot at stake here. Just in the next couple of minutes, it's 10 a.m. on the East Coast, which means that we are in Supreme Court decision time. We're going to watch for the Supreme Court. We don't know exactly how many decisions, whether we're going to get the tariff decision. That is a possibility over the next couple of moments. So we're watching for that in real time. Meanwhile, we saw the social media post from the president over the weekend that roiled markets that led to the open that we're seeing now. Take a look at what the president posted on social media in part. This is a response by the president to European countries which put forces in Greenland over the weekend to protect it from a potential American military takeover. The president says he's going to put in on February 1st a 10% tariff on all goods from the countries that have sent troops to Greenland. On June 1st, he said that will increase to 25%. He said that tariff will be in place until a deal is reached to purchase Greenland. And here's what he said on social media in terms of explaining his reasoning for this. He says, we have subsidized Denmark and all of the countries of the European Union and others for many years by not charging them tariffs or any other form of remuneration. Now, after centuries, it is time for Denmark to give back. World peace is at stake, says the president over the weekend. So what the president is doing here is saying that if those European countries insist on putting troops in Greenland to protect it from a potential U.S. military invasion, then he will impose these tariffs as of February 1st and then kicking into a higher level in June of this year. All of that said, David, it's important to put this in some context. We saw the president threatening tariffs last week. Remember, he threatened tariffs on trading partners of Iran, including, of course, China, which is a big one. That threat came on Monday. The president said a couple of times during the course of the week last week that those tariffs were in effect. However, we have not seen any tariffs noticed to the Federal Register over the course of the past week from his threat last week. So as far as we can tell, David, nobody is collecting those trading partner tariffs on Iran that the president threatened last week, even though he says those are in effect. Is that going to be the case with this threat? We just don't know. We'll wait and see, and we'll wait and see for that Supreme Court decision.
Right. And if recent history holds, we'll be talking to you soon about whether or not we're getting that decision. And if we do.
Okay, so we don't have the decision yet. I am looking across the board. I don't see the decision. We should be getting it like really soon. If we're not getting it, then we'll know pretty soon as well. Cactus, I don't think you have it yet either. I mean, is Nike pumping? Usually that's a sign of at least the market positioning. No, Nike's flat. I don't think we're getting it. I don't think we're getting it. Yep. I don't think we're getting it, guys. We'll probably get the official announcement soon. They are making a decision, it seems like, on Burke versus Choi. That is on the docket. I'll show you guys right here for January 20th. As you can see right there, that's the only thing they have open for January 20th, Burke versus Choi. This is a decision around someone injuring their ankle and receiving negligent medical care from 3 healthcare providers. Basically, this is someone suing a doctor. I don't know how this got to the Supreme Court, but I guess it did. Yeah, it looks like we're not getting it. This is getting stupid, bro. This is getting so stupid. Oh my gosh. They're going to talk about ankles today. They are not going to talk about the freaking tariffs that control foreign and trade policy. They're going to talk about ankles. Not saying ankles aren't important, When I was starter for JV basketball freshman year, your boy broke some ankles. Like, I get it. Ankles are important, but still, like, come on. I think we have some important things to talk about. Intel right there, 49.30. I'm sure the news networks will officially say we're not getting it pretty soon, but it looks like it's not happening. Ondas, 10%. 10%. That's green. Cypher down 7. Zeta's flat. Bloom goes down 1. Rocket Lab all the way from 98 to 93. That one gets hit. 98 to 93. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're getting it. Does not look like we're getting it. VG, Rocket Lab now below 93. VG is at 860. That's down 2.3. Silver still pumping. 86.11 right there on SLV. T1 continuing to be strong as that one's holding on. That's up 9% on the day. Ondas is a drone company for those that don't know. They just raised $1 billion as well, so that's helping them recapitalize. Tesla continues to go red, 424. That's down 2.8. Then Amazon 232. Were you point guard? Yes, I was point guard. Now, our team didn't win a lot, but I still got to be starting point guard, which was fun. I think we ended up going like 2-12 for the season. So we definitely didn't win a lot of games, but it was still a fun time. App 11 right there. That one almost recovering to a full green. 559. APLD. Why is that down 10%? My goodness. Nebius, are we at least holding 100? All right, so Nebius is at least. Nebius and Iran holding a little bit. The other data center names getting hit. CoreWeave, that's down 5. Riot had a deal with AMD last week. That deal is not really getting a ton of respect. That one's down 7% as well. Do you own Intel? No, I do not own Intel. Probably should, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think the valuation's amazing, but obviously the Trump-Jensen connections are probably going to keep this one moving higher. Grabs holding on to this green. Meta as well, not really collapsing below 600, but also not spiking up higher, 607. Lots of buyers coming in right there, taking a stab at it. ASTS 120 to 112. That one's getting hit, and then the Qs down a full 2% of the day. Are you still holding OSS? Yes. I do think these guys are one contract away from like really re-rating as a company, but it is a small cap, and it really hasn't given people an opportunity. I mean, it got to 980 today. That was like the one dip in 2 weeks that it's given people. So there's a lot of buyers that are trying to get exposure to it. CRML, that's down 4%. Once again, going red. USAR is the only one up 9% based on the deal he had with France. New NUAI, New Era Energy. This one was halted, up 35. It's still up 35. And then Micron breaking through 375 down from 381. There you go. U.S. Supreme Court does not issue ruling and challenge the legality of Trump global tariffs. That is officially live. Bitcoin. Oh, we lost 90. Or not yet. We are $25 away from losing 90. Uh-oh. Let's see. ENS, that one continues to just be a phenomenal name, 171. I still do not own this stock, but I mean, it is relatively cheap at 1.7 times sales for the grid trade. If anyone's interested in this one, we did a deep dive on this a couple weeks ago. ENS right there, 171. I think we talked about it when it was 120. Ended up just not pulling the trigger, but this one's holding on pretty nicely. Bitcoin, there she goes. Lost 90. Lost 90. Mitt was a star point guard before his injury. I wish it was an injury that caused my actually no, I don't wish it was an injury, but like it was an injury. I just kind of sucked compared to everybody else. Like our basketball district was pretty competitive. Like people were really good. I think I wasn't horrible, but yeah, it was an injury. I just ended up sucking. But then I quit sophomore year and I joined debate. And that's how I became a yapper. So basketball taught me how to eventually yap. Ethereum right there, loses 3,000. There it is. 3,000. Did you average 3 points a game? 3? That's a pretty high standard, bro. 3 points a game is a little aggressive there. Did Trump tweet anything? I don't think Trump tweeted outside of what he said this morning. Oh, he did tweet his private signal text with Macron, which was kind of weird. But Macron said, as you guys can see right here, Macron says, we are totally in line on Syria and Iran. I do not understand what you're doing on Greenland, but I can try to set up a G7 meeting for us after Davos. I can invite the Ukrainians, the Danish, the Syrians, and the Russians, and let's have dinner together in Paris before you go back to the US. So Trump sharing the DMs with Macron. Maybe that helps, maybe that doesn't, but we're going to find out. Bitcoin right there, 89.8. 89.8. Where's BMNR? 28.41. That one continues to go down. Dude, it's a weird chain of events. Like these high beta names holding, NVIDIA dumping, Ondas up 10, Amazon down 3. A lot of the international names holding. S&P, this is like almost lows of the day, 680.107. Let's see if we lose 680. Yeah, 680.90 was the low of the day. So we were very close to those lows. Hood still down 3%. Oklo down 5. Oklo was just up 3. That went to 8% reversal. SanDisk basically at all-time highs. And then Coinbase getting hit as well. What about EOSE? EOSE is up 1.7. So that one with T1 holding on. Why would Trump post that? I have no idea. Like maybe that's his form of de-escalating by saying, hey, I'm going to talk to my European peers. He then posted another text with the Secretary General of NATO, and the guy said, Dear President Donald, what you accomplished in Syria today is incredible. I will use my media engagements in Davos to highlight your work there in Gaza and in Ukraine. I'm committed to finding a way to work forward with you on Greenland. Can't wait to see you. Talk about glazing, bro. Goodness, can't wait to see you. Acting like this is a girl he's trying to meet up with or something. But nonetheless, Trump, I think Trump's putting that out there to try to show people, hey, like, these people are on my side. Bitcoin, a little rebound right there, 89.8 to 90.3. That's a quick $500 candle on Bitcoin. Ethereum as well, back above 3,000. Yeah, all right, CNBC officially reporting no Supreme Court decision today. There you go. They will be talking about ankles later today. And that's what we're going to have to see. Coinbase CEO, Brian Armstrong, he made a lot of headlines last week. He's not happy with this new bill. Here's what he had to say this morning about what's going on with the crypto ecosystem.
Of course, Coinbase has a point of view, although we don't represent the crypto industry. And we saw some draft text midnight on Monday night.
Right.
Our lawyers started looking at it on Tuesday. I was in DC on Wednesday. We started to notice some pretty serious issues in the draft text that we had a concern with, and there didn't appear to be a plan to actually get that fixed coming out of a Senate Banking Committee markup. And so we actually felt like we had an obligation to go out and defend our customers' rights and say, we have some issues here. We were careful not to comment on what the Senate should do in terms of markup or not, but they did decide to postpone it. And so now there's an opportunity for us to come back and chat with the bank CEOs and see what would create a win-win outcome.
Okay, so let's walk through some of those issues and also walk through what is a battle taking place between crypto and maybe classic legacy Wall Street here. And then maybe we get into also just the power and influence that you have, whether you believe you have it or not, because every headline last week about this very bill effectively getting temporarily suspended, or at least was about the withdrawal of support that from you effectively. So you do have more influence maybe than you think. But let's talk about the issues themselves first. Top 3 issues right now for you that were problematic in that bill.
Yeah, so the number one is really around payment of rewards on stablecoins. I think Americans should be able to earn more money on their money. Banks should have to compete on a level playing field. And if the American people feel like the banks are not paying high enough interest rates and stablecoin rewards can offer them more, then maybe the banks should have to pay higher interest rates to compete, right? I don't think there should be any protectionism.
Do you think that was put in directly for the banks? That was lobbied by the banks and put in?
Yes.
And look, the banks argue.
So again, Brian Armstrong's argument around how the banks are getting the benefit out of this crypto bill, I think it's a legit argument. Now, the Trump administration was not really happy with his comments. They thought they had a deal that was officially ready to go. Trump was ready to claim another win around the crypto industry. And then Brian Armstrong came out and basically said, yeah, that's not going to happen. So I mean, you do have some major concerns by how Coinbase is ultimately thinking about this bill. And I guess time will tell if they end up getting this to go through. Here is the update on the Supreme Court stuff as we are not getting a decision.
More action coming up this hour as we can.
I know you're talking to a lot of the
From the Supreme Court that the tariff decision will not be coming today. The third time that has been the case. One of these days, of course, we will get that decision, but it will not.
Yeah, it's not happening today. It's not happening today. You know who's not affected by tariffs? Netflix. I mean, the thing is, I think every company in some capacity is inevitably affected by Netflix. I mean, for example, if Netflix wants to make content in Denmark, or if they want to, record or license a studio in Europe, if there's any level of supply chain ecosystem that affects the props and things that they have on that set, the overall exporting and importing laws, the tax laws, obviously, that ends up having an impact. Now, is that a massive impact? No. But I think the reason stocks are down today is because every company in some way or shape is affected from Europe in some respect. Now, Netflix's bigger issue is the Warner Brothers deal, which is why I think the stock is up today, up about 1%. It looks like they're getting Warner Brothers officially. That's going to happen. And if that's the case, that should be super bullish for them. I still don't know if Netflix is a buy. Let's do a chat right here, or let's do a poll right here. Netflix, do we think a pump or dump today? I was even thinking of playing Netflix's earnings because I'm like, it's down a lot. A little bit of rebound to 94 is not crazy to imagine. It was at 94 a couple weeks ago. But what if this thing just dumps back into the low 80s as the subscriber growth slows down? They had the lowest subscriber growth ever last quarter. That wasn't necessarily encouraging. Their operating margins didn't really go up the way I thought they would go up. And so I think it's a little tough to play earnings here. But the sentiment around the stock is definitely depressed, which means this one maybe could get a pump. We also have IBKR and United after earnings today. IBKR and United as well. Martin says, I'm canceling Netflix. Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Grey's Anatomy, I don't know why. Dude, that failed. Did anyone watch The Rip or whatever with freaking Matt Damon and Ben Affleck? It was so bad. It was so bad. I couldn't believe how bad that film was. I mean, for the quality of actors that they are, it was unbelievably and they need Warner Brothers. Let's just say that. Netflix needs Warner Brothers. Chris, thanks for the super chat. Any idea on why AMD is up? Yeah, it is kind of weird. I mean, AMD making a move right here with the rest of the semis, NVIDIA and Broadcom being held down is interesting. Let me see if there's a headline. I don't think there's any headline. Yes, we should have Technical Tuesday with Jason today. I will confirm, but most likely we were having that later today. AMD got an upgrade this morning. I mean, they got a lot of upgrades last week. Oh, this is probably the headline. Yeah, this was a big one. Meta is reportedly scaling back its in-house ASIC plans, and instead of buying TPUs, it's buying AMD's MI455X chip. Now, that is not officially confirmed by Meta or AMD, but that is a headline that's proving the custom build of chips, which is why Broadcom got the multiple that it got a couple months ago, is not the easiest thing to build, even though a lot of companies think that that's a way they can sidestep NVIDIA and AMD. So if that's true, then Meta's just going to be spending a lot more on AMD, and obviously that's good for AMD. Meta right there, 608, a little bit higher. Lilly just turned green. Your healthcare names starting to turn around a little bit. I think you're wrong on The Rip. It was a very good movie, the best from Netflix. The CGI looked bad, but everything was believable. I just felt like the storyline around, and I can understand that perspective. I just felt like the storyline was not worth Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's time. I mean, these guys were in Good Will Hunting. These guys are, when you put them together, you're supposed to get a classic. And The Rip was not even close to a classic. It feels like they did it for the money, which, look, I don't blame them if they're doing it for the money, but it didn't feel like they were really trying to make an amazing film. 681 on the S&P. That one's still down 1.5%. Cactus, can you get us some option flow? Let's see. Oh, there it is. If you have anything else, let me know. We have some pretty heavy put buyers today. Almost 7 million in puts being bought for February 20th on the Qs at 620, close to the money. And then S&P 685. They're paying above the spot price. That means, they want to get into these puts pretty heavy. As you're seeing more option flow come in on the bearish side. ETH lost 3,000. That one's down. Adobe's going to 250. Dude, this thing has also been a disaster, but it's cheap. But we were talking about this last night. Cheap might not be a thesis anymore. Like maybe 3 years ago, cheap could be a thesis. Now it's about growth. Growth. That's what matters. Adobe right there, down another 3%, 289. Google, are we flipping green? Google, a little bit of green right there, 324. That's up. Celsius still moving. And that's higher as well. EOSC up 2, Ethereum just above 3, BMNR down 8.2. Jamie, pull it up vibes here. Yeah, Cactus is absolutely our Jamie. Any change in the poly market for tariffs? No, I checked it this morning. 70% on Kalshi and poly market that Trump tariffs will not be approved. So the overwhelming amount of bettors still feel that Trump's not getting these tariffs approved. But until we get the Supreme Court decision, we're not necessarily going to know how this ends up playing out. A couple other people that were live this morning. Bunch of different people. Oh, here was Jassy from Amazon. You could tell he's a little frustrated about the stock. I mean, he wasn't explicitly asked about the stock, but you can tell he's a bit annoyed that the market's not recognizing what they're doing. But here's what he had to say earlier this morning on Amazon's progress.
They are looking for bargains wherever they can find bargains. I see people a little bit more hesitant on the higher price discretionary items. We have improved our speed of delivery so much that we have so many more people buying everyday essentials from us. It's amazing how fast that business is growing for us. I think that we'll have to see what happens on tariffs. We did a lot of pre-buying in the early part of 2025 to enable us to try and keep prices as low as possible for customers. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our third-party sellers did a lot of forward staging in our fulfillment network for the same reasons. And that supply has run out, in the fall. And so you start to see some of the tariffs creep into some of the prices of some of the items, and you see some sellers are deciding that they're passing on those higher costs to consumers in the form of higher prices. Some are deciding that they'll absorb it to drive demand, and some are doing something in between. And so I think you're starting to see more of that impact. And we have so many items. We have hundreds of millions of items, and we have 2 million sellers, many of whom are willing to pursue different strategies in how they price that are, Amazon's consumers overall, I think, have fared well. But we'll have to see what happens in 2026.
What do you do once you run out of those strategies, like you said, like buying ahead, trying to do some of these things? Are there other levers that you can use to keep prices down?
Well, as much as we can, we're trying to work with our distribution partners and our selling partners to try to keep prices as low as possible for consumers. That is our focus. I mean, it has always been our focus, but especially in times of more uncertain economies.
And he's right about that. I mean, even with the tariffs, has anyone noticed stuff on Amazon has gotten significantly more expensive? Because every time I shop on Amazon, all I notice is that these are the cheapest prices that I could get from anywhere. I mean, if I were to go to Walmart and buy something physically, like it's just cheaper on Amazon. Bitcoin right there catching a little bit of a bid at 90.4. Zeta, are we getting a little bit of a pump? Zeta, yeah, there you go, 2042, a little bit of a pump. So I'm sure some items are definitely more expensive, right? Like they've obviously had to raise prices on some things, but the far majority of stuff is pretty damn cheap on Amazon, which is actually the bear case to Amazon because they don't make any money off their e-commerce. That's not a moneymaker for them, but it subsidizes the Amazon ecosystem, which allows AWS to end up thriving. And robotics should help those margins get better, but they've pretty much been on the side of the consumer for a very long time. I mean, to the detriment of the seller. The amount of lawsuits they've been in with third-party sellers of how they've been screwed because Amazon picks the cheapest price for the consumer and ends up screwing a lot of the people that sell on their platform. But it's been very consumer focused more than anything. Google right there, down 1.6, getting a green candle. Zeta again, 20.50. OSS, wow. Did not expect this thing to go up 9% today. On a day like this, you would think this should be down 20%. This one reversed. ENS, that's up 2.6. Where's Amcor? Are we pushing 49? 48.68? She doesn't want to go down yet. She does not want to go down. Maybe everyone learned from April 2025 that it's not that big of a deal with tariffs and a bit of taco and no panic selling. Not sure, but I was expecting 10% down on high beta. Yeah, and here's the thing. When everyone's expecting 10% down on high beta, or just like in general more pain, I mean, sometimes we go the opposite. And I think for the past couple of weeks, people have been expecting high beta to take a breather. Obviously, this was the thing that people thought would make it take a breather. And no, it's not really taking, I mean, maybe Rocket Lab at 92 is a little bit of a breather here, but it's definitely not some 40, 50% drawdown that people were thinking of. Ori, thanks for the super chat. Palantir upgrade hold to buy by Envision Research. Yeah, Palantir's gotten a couple upgrades over the past week. Earnings are going to be important. I mean, I wonder if they're going to sandbag the guidance or if they're going to straight up give us like the number, Palantir back to 170 that the street's looking for. I think the street's looking for 65 to 70% year over year in guidance. And I think Palantir will get there. I don't know if they want to give it away that quickly. They might guide for like 55 and then end up getting to 70. But it's going to be important to see what happens. Here's a couple clips of Karp from Davos. Here's what he had to say about Europe earlier this morning.
I spent a lot of my life, my most important years, and my father's family came from a part of Germany, and I really care about Europe, and especially the German parts of Europe, where I had many of my best years. I still fantasize of going back to grad school, not for the learning reasons.
This time you're going to have more fun?
I had so much fun.
Oh.
We won't go into that. But it's like endless. Sometimes when I'm traveling across the country, I just think of grad school. But the tech adoption in Europe is a serious and very, very structural problem. And what scares me the most is I haven't seen any political leader just stand up and say, we have a serious and structural problem that we are going to fix. I spent a lot of my...
Here's Benioff just now talking about the stock price with Salesforce.
Had in our careers, every single thing outperformed the revenue growth, profitability, cash flow. And we're not talking like low numbers. We're talking, we delivered over 34% margins. Cash flow this year is going to be $15 billion. We're one of the largest cash producing companies in the world. And, we're going to do more than 41 billion in revenue this year, but it's not enough because if you don't produce a large language model, you're evidently not in fashion right now. So look, our job is number one, we're just making customers successful with this technology. That's very important. We're probably the largest or second largest supplier of tokens to enterprises in the world. We just passed more than 11.14 trillion tokens. That's up from 3 trillion when we launched the quarter. And the rate of growth with AI with Salesforce has been awesome. And we're just going to continue to do more.
But the rate of growth overall has slowed from the double-digit gains, right? It's decelerated.
Well, we are the largest enterprise software company in the world.
See, I don't know if Benioff can get away with this. I don't like Sarah saying the rate of growth is slowing down. Benioff is saying you can't expect us to grow that much because we're already so big. We're doing 40 billion a year. Reasonable argument from the CEO. I mean, I get it. If you're doing 40 billion a year, it's hard to grow 50%. But if you're saying you're the leader of the AI revolution in software, you should be growing more than 10%. Like, I don't think that's a crazy thing to ask. I mean, NVIDIA is growing 60%. NVIDIA does a lot more revenue than Salesforce. I understand they're totally different businesses. But if AI is that big of a tailwind, the growth's got to be there. And I think the street's just not respecting the free cash flow if you're saying you're an AI leader, but the AI is not leading to any meaningful growth.
So it's just as you've gotten bigger. That's one thing I hear. The other thing I hear, Mark, is that in order to be an AI play, we have to see proof, monetization of the AI story.
Yeah, and you've seen that. We are doing more than $1.5 billion in our core AI technology, our data cloud, our Agentforce platforms. These things are growing, at triple digits. And the customer success is awesome. Everyone looked at, the Williams Sonoma website, and they used Olive, to buy all their products for Christmas. But here at the World Economic Forum, and we've been running the World Economic Forum's data management for more than a decade. So all the customer information, everything that everyone has ever done here, it's all in our systems. Well, now we've built an agent, Eva, and Eva is guiding these World Economic Forum attendees, through the conference, helping them to kind of achieve success, networking, making sure they have impact. That's really awesome.
What's your differentiator in terms of building the AI chatbots?
Well, we're the only ones who can deliver really at the 4 core levels of enterprise AI. First of all, the data, our data assets are amazing. We'll do more than $10 billion in data assets this year. That includes products like MuleSoft, Informatica, our own Data 360. These are products that are federated and integrated, that harmonize your data, which is critical. You don't have your data right, you're not going to get your AI right. That's one.
Yeah, every software company is saying the same thing. I mean, that's Snowflake's argument as well. I don't know, dude. Obviously Salesforce is cheap, but is it a value trap along with some of the other SaaS names that are just not growing? And that's the one thing I like about Zeta. They're growing 34% and they're trading at a $5 billion market cap, doing almost $1.73 billion in revenue, 4x sales. Like that to me is, forget if it's a SaaS name or not. That's just a cheap company, especially as they're about to turn profitable. Salesforce is cheap, but like the alpha is really being questioned. And again, this market has not been rewarding. Micron, by the way, losing its entire pump. Look at that, 381 to 365. So you got a big dump on Micron. This market is not rewarding being cheap and having good free cash flow. This market is rewarding top and bottom line growth. And if that eventually translates into strong cash flows, that just, is icing on the cake. But like ultimately you have to show that top line growth. Micron guided for 100% EPS growth in Q1. That is why I think they're getting the multiple they're getting as well. Same thing with SanDisk. Bitcoin right there, 90.5, as that one gaps up from the low 80s or 89s. Whereas SoFi, we were at 25, we were at 26.16. SoFi goes green. SoFi goes green. DraftKings got hit on Friday because the New York Sportsbook put out a statement that they saw 40% less revenue growth in the last quarter. And it doesn't necessarily directly affect DraftKings and Flutter, but it did affect them. And that's why these stocks got hit as well. DraftKings right here down 3.4% on the day. Again, I think the prediction markets are continuing to commoditize the sports ecosystem. I mean, just this weekend, I think there was like 100 million contracts traded on Robinhood's prediction markets. The Bears game was crazy. Shout out to, what's his name? Jalen Williams, right? Yeah, I mean, what's his name? Jalen Hurts. Dude, that throw was incredible. They couldn't finish it off, but I mean, that completely added a ton of volatility to those prediction markets. And then you had the Bills game. I mean, that stuff was pretty massive. So I think more people are trading on that versus on DraftKings. Amcor right there, 48.47. Okay, don't get mad at me, but oh, Caleb Williams? Oh, shit. Oh, my bad. I thought it was Jay. Okay, I'm not a football guy. Like, wait, who's Jalen Hurts? Who the hell is Jalen Hurts? Who is that guy? Oh, he's the Eagles guy. Oh, shit. My bad. I'm not a football guy, okay? I'm sorry. I know Drake May, though. Shout out to the Patriots, dude. I'm not even a Patriots fan. I just like to see dominance. And I feel like the Patriots maybe have their next Brady. I mean, it's pretty cool to see them have a new quarterback. Dude, I actually had no idea. I really didn't know. Caleb Williams, that's the guy. All right, there you go. The QB you're thinking of is Daniel Day-Lewis. Stick to stocks. Okay, I'll stick to. Every time I try to talk about sports, it ends up in this dude. Every time. I try to talk with so much confidence. and I just end up not saying anything important. Bounty right there, back to 170, or just below 170 Rock Lab. 92.97. I think, just this is my gut feeling. I've watched like a couple games this season. I think the Seahawks are going to win the whole thing. That team, they're still part of the Super Bowl, right? Or they're in contention. Yeah, I mean, they crushed the 49ers. I think those guys are winning. That game and their dominance, at least from some of the stuff I've seen this year, I feel like they're going to win. Okay, here was our boy Tom on crypto and gold. And we'll try to get a little bit more coverage from Davos in a bit.
Down and of course be stronger on a recovery.
Let's touch on gold and then crypto. Why did gold perform so well last year, do you think?
I think there's some very visible reasons and some invisible reasons. To me, I think the visible reasons for gold doing well is one, I think that there's a lot more political and geopolitical uncertainty in the investment environment because we have wars taking place. And of course, we have a president in the US that I think has actually done a good job on the economy, but has raised divisiveness and uncertainty about trade globally. The second is that global central banks are generally easing. And in the US, we're finally getting an easing cycle, including QT ending. That should support gold. The invisible reasons are, number one, I believe Tether, which is the largest stablecoin provider in the US, has become the largest private buyer of gold because Tether is already sufficiently collateralized with Treasury backing every stablecoin unit, but they generate income. And with that excess return, they're buying gold. So I believe that they've been the net buyer, the largest net buyer since July.
When you say you believe that, you know that? Or
Yeah, I think we've seen the data. Yeah.
And so how big a buyer are they relative to the sort of central banks of this world that have been big buyers of late?
Wilfred, I'm sorry, I don't know how to scale it, but I believe there's only maybe one central bank that might have bought more than Tether.
Wow.
So that same argument about central banks buying gold, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Obviously, Tether tokenizing gold, which means they need the reserves, is also something that's been an argument. And I think general geopolitical uncertainty as the 10-year continues to gap up is why we've seen gold get some love, 4.27 on the 10-year right now. Burry just tweeted about Greenland. Let's see what he has to say. One reason Greenland is strategically important to the U.S. is, in fact, twofold. It's the best place to set up an anti-missile defenses to intercept ICBMs coming from Russia and China. It's a very good place to set up offensive missile capabilities to threaten Russia and China. The Wall Street Journal had a good graphic out a few days ago showing the trajectory of missiles from ICBM sites around Russia to the U.S. would fly overhead or near Greenland, which would also happen to be almost directly beneath where those missiles would reach their highest points, which is when they are most vulnerable to interception because they are traveling at the slowest of speeds. If you throw a ball into the air, you'll see the same effect. The ball is slowest at its highest point. And for an intelligently guided missile capable of trying to evade interception, you have an even better chance to shoot it down from a point directly beneath it, since that is the closest path to the missile. This above is all courtesy of our resident rocket scientist, Phil. The U.S. already has the right to Greenland with military installations, and I imagine that extends to intercepting ICBMs, though Europe might object for some purposes. Okay, so Burry's on the side, implicitly, it looks like, of the U.S. acquiring Greenland. Once again, national security being the argument here. Although he does say that Europe is probably not going to be a fan of this. I think this is going to last for a while, dude. Because what's the compromise here? Trump says 10% tariffs unless I get Greenland. So what do the Europeans need to do to get him to not get Greenland, but also not have to deal with these tariffs? Like what is the compromise here? Genuinely, I'm curious. What do people think in the chat? What could be the way Europe gets to keep, or Denmark, I guess, gets to keep Greenland, and Trump gets to stop trying to go after it, but he's also happy enough to not want to pursue it, given how, much he's been talking about it. Like, what concession, what deal, I guess, ends up being negotiated? I mean, on the top of my head, maybe Europe spending more on NATO as a percentage of GDP, but they already increased it from like 2% to 5% last year. It's not like they're not spending a ton of money. A Nobel Peace Prize. Oh my gosh. Imagine that could have stopped all this. Give him Canada. Okay, that's not happening. No, but seriously, like let's be serious. Like, what could freaking stop this? Because there needs to be a but also the market's down today. It's not absolutely collapsed, which is the market basically saying we don't think this Europe threat is that serious. You're already seeing a bunch of stocks recover so far. So, I mean, if it ends up getting more serious, then I guess we'll see how the market reacts. But it's almost like the market's pricing in some type of deal will happen eventually, even if we don't get Greenland. I don't know. I don't know. Sell half to us. No, I don't, dude. If we're going for it, we're going for it. I don't think he's going to agree to half. Buy $1 billion of Trump coin, dude. That thing. I was looking at it over the weekend. It's at $4.92. It's down 95% from the highs, bro. This one didn't end up working out. This one did not end up working out. More investments from the EU. You know, I think that might actually be like, let's say the EU says we'll invest, I don't know, $500 billion into the US, even though they're already buying $750 billion of gas. That deal was last May, they announced. Like, maybe that's the solution. But doing all of this just to get more investment, I feel like is, I don't know. I don't think that makes sense. SoFi getting a little bit of a bid right here, and then Iran trying to turn green, but still down 3.7%. What if the EU NATO subsidizes the Golden Dome? If this is about national security, then I think that could be an argument, because if Trump's saying, hey, like, we need more money coming in to subsidize different forms of national security, even if we don't get Greenland, then that's what we're going after. Or this is more to do with Trump's ego. I mean, does anyone think like he's going to be done in a couple of years and he's going for a legacy move here? Because again, we talked about it last night. There have been 4 prior attempts where the U.S. has meaningfully tried to acquire Greenland. The earliest was 1846 after we got Alaska. And I think the last time was like 1946. It never worked out. So do you think he's like fighting for legacy here? Before the midterms, in case he loses the House and the Senate, and then it is really tough to do this type of stuff? Because I mean, I feel like that's plausible, but also it's like, I don't know if you don't get the deal done, then the legacy just ends up looking bad. Especially if it creates a lot of problems in the meantime. Wow, AMD pushing 240. I think it's on the Meta headline, guys. I think it's on the Meta ditching some of their ASICs to buy MI 450 or MI 455. I don't see any other major headline to get this one going green. Definitely feels like a legacy play. We already have 70 plus destroyers circling the US with anti-offensive ICBMs. Dude, we also already have a lot of military presence in Greenland. It's not like the US is not there. And so I think Trump's just like, all right, if we're already there, we might as well be there and like meaningfully control it. But you got a lot of people saying, wait a second, if you're already there, why do you need to actually have the entire thing? Right now, let's go to him real quick, and then we'll keep going from there.
This fiction was useful. And American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window. We participated in the rituals. And we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality. This bargain no longer works. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination. The multilateral institutions on which the middle powers have relied, the WTO, the UN, the COP, the architecture, the very architecture of collective problem solving are under threat.
All right, so some of the same stuff Carney was saying last week. Let's get to the Micron CEO and see what he has to say about the momentum in that name over the past couple of weeks.
Point out that it's not just about the shortage of memory, it is also about the value of memory. You know, AI is now everywhere from data center to the edge. Memory is a key enabler of AI. It is a strategic asset today, not like just a component in the system. And
so we need it.
We need it, just like your brain. You need more memory, you need faster memory. That's what is exactly happening in AI accelerators as large language models evolve, as training and then inference go across the edge, you know, and continue to broaden. They all need more memory. And that's what is creating, you know, tremendous demand for memory. And this is a long-term trend of AI growth. We are a real believer in AI. And supply certainly has been tight. And, you know,
how acute is that shortage?
You know, I will tell you, I shared in our December earnings call that for several of our key customers in the medium term, we are able to support 50% to 2/3 of their demand. And that's why we are really focused on bringing up supply. In the near term, focused on accelerating in our manufacturing infrastructure, technology transitions to the next node. That gives you a supply growth capability. And, you know, for the longer term, certainly very much focused, as you know, and as you just mentioned, in New York, breaking ground on a greenfield fab. In Idaho, already having fab under construction, the first fab will bring first wafers out in middle of 27 timeframe, with volume ramping in that first fab in Idaho in 28. We already have second fab in Idaho in design phase. That will be a meaningful volume ramp happening in 2029 timeframe.
What about New York?
And then the New York, you know, these fabs, I mean, they are massive fabs. Each of them are size of 10 football fields, massive amount of construction involved. So that's starting construction. We plan to pour concrete later this year. That fab will be ready for commissioning in 2028 timeframe, meaningful production ramp in 2030. It just, and that's what, Sarah, is causing a tremendous supply shortage. And that's what really needs to be realized, that value of memory is higher than ever, and construction takes a long time. New capacity, new greenfield fabs are needed to really address this demand, and that will occur over time. And there's a long lead time for construction of
Well,
the
I think that's why your stock is bucking the trend and has been such an outperformer. What does it mean for prices, which have obviously risen? Your margins are already at a record high. How much? I mean, are we going to continue to see what 10% price increases per quarter or so?
So we don't comment on the specifics of prices, but of course, pricing is a function of the value that the memory brings. And as I mentioned earlier, memory is now a critical enabler. It's essential for all AI, not just in data center, but in your smartphones, in your PCs. AI-enabled devices need more memory content. And look ahead, look at the future. You will have self-driving cars, more and more of them. And you're going to have humanoids as you start approaching turn of the decade into the next decade. All of those need more memory.
Wow, so the Micron CEO saying, hold on, don't just say we're cyclical. If NVIDIA is going to benefit from humanoids and all these other different AI accelerants, then so are we. And maybe that's kind of why the insider last week bought $8 million worth of stock. Maybe this thing really is cheap and this cycle is lasting a lot longer than people expect.
So this trend here is long-term. And, you know, of course, we are very much focused on continuing to really position Micron with the best technology, with the best product, with the best manufacturing capabilities, and being close to our customers and address their needs.
When it comes to American manufacturing, do you think we can really be competitive?
Absolutely. We are very appreciative of the tremendous support that we have received, you know, from the Trump administration. In June, we announced that we will be investing $200 billion here in US for semiconductor manufacturing and R&D. And with government support, and of course, continue to focus on bringing leading edge memory technology manufacturing here to the US, we absolutely plan to make semiconductor manufacturing successful in the US. I think you should look at Micron as a US national semiconductor champion. Just keep in mind that this.
That's smart. That's smart. He is speaking the language of what the administration wants to hear.
$200 billion investment, of course, will be creating tens of thousands of jobs. The first two fabs in New York will add 50,000 jobs in central New York. And a lot of them, most of them actually, even in construction, 85% to be sourced locally, but almost all the jobs.
I was going to ask you about that. Because you need thousands of skilled workers to build these plants.
Absolutely.
Do we have that in America?
And so we are absolutely working on the pipeline for workers. When you look at, we are engaging with Northeast University ecosystem to advance semiconductor curriculum. We are also working with colleges, junior colleges, such as Onondaga Community College, where we have set up a clean room to train the workers there for the future. So we are absolutely investing in preparing for the future workforce. New York area graduates about 20,000 STEM graduates every year. And the New York State has a program with respect to training of construction workers and preparing the workforce for semiconductor manufacturing. There are about 2,000 talent pipeline in crafts that are needed for manufacturing, construction-related work every year in that region in New York as well. And that's why we feel confident that we will be able to build that workforce. Just keep in mind, Micron over the years has been in Idaho, and we are building a manufacturing fab there, and we have strong experience there already.
What about China? I just have to ask you about that because you still sell to China. There have been restrictions on what you can, and that has shrunk the business as well. But how big of a geopolitical risk do you see there for your business?
What I would tell you is that, China used to be, like it is for semiconductor industry, high 20s as a percentage of our revenue. With the demand being driven by AI across the board on a global basis, of course, we are very much engaged with all the global leaders driving innovation, and some of them are in China as well. China today is in low double-digit percentage of our revenue. We are very much focused on bringing AI memory and the memory across the board. And Micron today is a clear technology leader. Fourth successive generation of DRAM technology leadership on a global basis. Third successive generation of NAND technology leadership on a global basis. That's what we are focused on, continuing driving technology leadership, product portfolio transformation, and positioning ourselves well for our customers' needs on a global basis.
Well,
I mean, pretty damn bullish by the Micron CEO. Rocket Lab right there, 92.76. Micron 369 did get hit from 381. $416 billion market cap. Not necessarily expensive at 11 PE or forward, price of sales of 9. If memory is the most important component of a lot of this AI revolution, in particular around HBM inside of GPUs, then yeah, I mean, they already gave us that guidance when it was at 220. And if they continue to live up to that guidance or increase it, I mean, this is going to get a bid over something like a Salesforce, which is just not growing at the level that the market thinks of it. Now, Salesforce is not as cyclical as Micron because it's a software business, recurring revenues. But if the cycle is lasting longer, then you're going to have plenty of people jump into that cycle. Zeta right there, 2070. Zeta did get up to 1950 today. So this one rebounding is nice to see, as this one's been developing a really nice base around that $20 range. Didn't go below 19, which is good. Broadcom right there, that's down 3. Netflix still up a little bit. EOSC is up 4%. Yeah, Optimus is likely going to need some memory. A couple other clips from Davos. First of all, just saw this one. Danish member of the European Parliament had some choice words for Mr. Trump.
Let me put this in words you might understand. Mr. President, fuck off.
Okay, so Dane's not necessarily happy about what's happening here. Here's what Nadella had to say about an AI bubble at Davos as well.
I mean, the most important thing that we see as an investor is the democratization of technology, and the diffusion of that technology really does then transform the demand. And the companies or the countries that diffuse it fastest are going to be the ultimate winners, not the technology creator.
That's it's
For this not to be a bubble, by definition, it requires that the benefits of this are much more evenly spread. I mean, I think a telltale sign of if it's a bubble would be if all we're talking about are the tech firms. Right? If all we talk about is what's happening to the technology side, then that's it's just purely supply side. Right? Ultimately, if we are not talking about, wow, here is a drug company, drug that was sort of brought into the market that's super successful because it was AI accelerated the clinical trial. It's not even the magical molecule, right? It's kind of even the rest of what is needed in order to make something much more relevant, right? And so the more we have, and by the way, it's happening, right? So I'm not sort of saying that. That's why I'm much more confident that this is a technology that will in fact build on the rails of cloud and mobile, diffuse faster, and bend the productivity curve and bring local surplus and economic growth all around the world, not just economic growth driven by capital expenses, right? Because that's a narrow point in time calculation. It's right now, that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing in the developed world in particular.
Okay, so that's not my video. I don't play things that fast, but the fact that some of you guys listen to 2x YouTube videos, which I know some of you do, I've never been able to do that. That's what you guys listen to, which I can't do that. I don't know how you guys do that. But the quote to take away from here is, to avoid an AI bubble, the benefits need to be more evenly spread. AI has to translate into real productivity and economic growth, not just more spending. I think we would all agree with that. A tell that we're in a bubble is if all we're talking about is tech and hyperscalers. So Nadella making the argument that we need to see that ROI in order to meaningfully have less of a fear of a bubble. If we're only talking about the CapEx spend, which has been a lot of the conversation over the past 6 months, then maybe it's a little bit more bubblicious. Okay, I do not talk that fast. Okay, that was a bit ridiculous. I don't talk it that fast. But for the people that I have never listened to a YouTube video, forget in 2x, 1.5 or 1.2. Like if I turn on a video and I'm working, it's at one speed. It's like I have never made it. Like the fact that some of you guys do that. Now, maybe me speaking fast enough means you don't have to do it for my videos, which if you do it for my videos, that's kind of crazy. But I don't know. Maybe I don't respect my time enough. Like I've always watched YouTube or listened to YouTube at 1x. And then here was an awkward moment with Lutnick in Davos about 40 minutes ago.
Can I bring you back to Greenland?
No. It's unnecessary. It's the Western Hemisphere is vital for the United States of America. Our national security people are on it, and they care about it. And I'm going to leave it to them to address with our allies, with our friends, and with everyone how they work it out. But the Western Hemisphere matters to the United States of America. And the United States of America, as I've just articulated, really, really matters to the world. When America shines, the world shines, because they all need to make sure America is strong and powerful to take care of them, God forbid. And so I think America and the Western Hemisphere are vital to America, and I'm going to leave that to my national security people to address.
Right. The rest of us, I think, are finding it harder to make that kind of separation clearly.
The rest of the panel pretty much is looking at Lutnick like, I don't know if we agree with that. Lutnick's going to be on again. We'll take a look at what he has to say in a bit. EOSC up 4%. But once again, the United States pretty much isolating themselves in Davos as they have officially taken this stance. And I haven't seen any European, Asian, or other ally come out in support of what the United States has said. I mean, maybe like El Salvador and Argentina are supporting this, but no one from the EU has endorsed what the United States is trying to do. AMD right there is still holding 238 as that one continues to be green. Again, Greenland is about minerals. Yeah, I think all of us have come to that conclusion that the national security argument that Trump is making is more so rooted in minerals. The question is, can we make a deal to actually acquire it? Now, here's the crazy thing, okay? Here's the crazy thing. Right now, Trump is talking about making a deal to acquire Greenland. We have not taken the step of we're just going to take Greenland, aka a full-on invasion. Like that hasn't happened yet. And I really hope that doesn't happen. Like I am praying that that doesn't end up being the route of what the United States does. Right now, it's in the conversation of, hey, we're going to use tariffs until you guys come to the negotiating table to help us get a broker a deal to make this happen. If Trump were to actually say, we're going in, which, I mean, I think our military would be able to successfully do it, just given we have a lot more firepower and like it would be something that could happen. That would create a war, even if the United States were to win that war. And I really don't think the markets would love that. I also don't think the American public would say, oh yeah, like let's just go take over a sovereign nation. Like it would not be good. It would not be a good thing. Now, I don't think Trump goes that far. That's I don't think he actually pulls that trigger. I think right now it's still a negotiating tactic to get to a deal. But if that were to happen, I mean, all bets are off the table at that. I don't know how the markets can rationalize that. Because first of all, we'd have to spend a ton of military money. Obviously, Europe would send their best military weapons. I mean, we'd be getting into a war with the EU, which would be a bit crazy, especially when, you know, we're not supposed to be fighting with them. We're supposed to be fighting Russia and China. And I just think that would be not the best thing in the world. So I guess we're going to see. I guess we're going to see how this officially ends up playing out. That would be disastrous. Yes. I don't know how anyone could think that would be a good thing to do, or how the markets would interpret that as meaningful. Now, look, if Russia and China tries to go take over Greenland and then the United States comes in, then like it's a little bit of a different dynamic there. At that point, we'd be probably supporting the Danes. But if we just unilaterally decide to go and invade, I don't think that would be the best. Supreme Court decision, again, is not happening for those that are wondering. Netflix right there, 88.50. They have earnings later today. That's up 0.5%. How many troops does the U.S. have in Greenland? I think we have not that many. I think we have like 150 soldiers in the U.S. in Greenland right now. Yeah, around 150 to 200 U.S. military personnel are currently in Greenland. Let's get another update on Greenland. Let's pull this up. Officially 11 a.m. Haven't really seen a 10:30 slam either. S&P still down 1.5 for the day, but not necessarily getting hit worse than that.
That sent troops to Greenland to defend Greenland against a U.S. invasion. That would be a 10% tariff on all goods kicking in on February 1st. On June 1st, that would increase to 25%. And that, he says, would be charged until the deal is reached to purchase Greenland. That sets up a really amazing confrontation between President Trump and European leaders in Davos this week. Remember, the president is planning to leave tonight to go to Davos tomorrow. He's going to address the World Economic Forum there. He's going to have dinner with CEOs. So CEOs are caught in this crossfire as the president deals with his counterparts and foreign heads of state. On Thursday, he is scheduled to announce the so-called Board of Peace members for the new organization that he wants to run Gaza and potentially so much more as a new international body. So a lot of geopolitical tectonic plates are shifting here in Davos. And as that is all happening, we see European leaders coming out sharply critical of the president, none more so perhaps than Emmanuel Macron of France. Here's what he said in Davos earlier today, pushing European governments to resist the United States. Here's what he said.
Europe has very strong tools now, and we have to use them when we are not respected and when the rules of the game are not respected, by the way. The anti-coercion mechanism is a powerful instrument, and we should not hesitate to deploy it in today's tough environment.
So Macron speaking there with the sunglasses on because of an eye condition, and he's talking about the anti-coercion mechanism that the Europeans now have. Remember, that was an idea that was designed to push back against Chinese coercion, but now what he's suggesting is using it to push back against American coercion, saying that the Europeans have strong tools and need to use them because they're not being respected by the United States. So a dramatic confrontation coming in Switzerland between the United States and the European Union. David?
Yeah, I mean, that's the so-called bazooka. Unclear whether it will be used. Right. Obviously, the Treasury Secretary urging not to escalate, which that certainly would be, Eamon, were the Europeans to go that route. Is the president using IEEPA to impose these latest potential tariffs as well?
We believe that that's what he's talking about. Now, he hasn't imposed them yet, so we don't have the final language on it. And remember, I think I mentioned this last hour, but the president last week threatened to put 25% tariffs on any trading partners of the Iranians And he said several times that week that had gone into effect. We can't find that noticed anywhere in the Federal Register. So we don't think that's actually in effect, despite what the president has said. In this case, is this threatening? Is this actual? We don't know for sure, but IEEPA would be the authority that he would use. And then that's up in the air, depending on what the Supreme Court does, whether that's constitutional or not.
Right. Which, when's the next time we may get a decision, at least a series of decisions? We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, could be over several days. They kind of spring these on us with a couple days notice and say, you know, watch this space, and then we watch the space.
Okay.
All right. I guess we continue to wait until we see what plays out. Bitcoin right there. Nice rebound, 89.8 to 90.6. This is weird, man. I did not expect 2026 to start off like this, even though we probably should have, right? We probably should have. But who would have thought January 1st, Trump's going to use the tariff playbook again when it could get shut down by the Supreme Court, and he's going to use it to acquire another piece of land that's out there by tariffing all these other countries that are some of our biggest allies by 10%. Like, you would think April was like a one and done, all right, liberation, reciprocal tariffs, 80% Zimbabwe tariffs, and that's not going to happen again. And then boom, here we are. But if you went into all cash because you thought that was going to happen, I mean, that really wasn't the move, because so far we haven't had, I mean, S&P getting a little recovery right there. It was down 1.6, now it's down 1.2. We haven't had some cataclysmic drawdown because of this. Market's kind of fading it off. 1.2% is not that ugly. AMD right there, still 237. App just went green. So if anyone picked that up in the low 500s last night, congrats. Look at that, 570 as that one's rebounding. As this one continues to try to fight back against the short report. Big Bear AI just got a ton of volume. That's at 613. Netflix 8851. Grab at 444. Someone said, are you buying more Grab here? I am not. I wanted this thing to go to 420. I already have a full position. We didn't break the 430 lows, which I thought was good. So now we got to see if we can get back above 450 and hold it. But I'll not be buying more here. MP at 69.31, USAR at 19.50. That one's still up 10% as well. Bought VIX leaps at 14. Where's VIX right now? We're at 19, right, on the VIX? Okay, so if you bought it at 14, those are decent. Oh, you probably bought it last week then, right? Yeah, so VIX is up 31% year to date. If you've been long volatility, that is massively outperformed the S&P 500. Palantir goes green. The defense contractors, again, could catch a bid if this stuff continues to heighten up. Silver and gold obviously continuing to do well. Can't we just trade California for Greenland? Dude, California's GDP is kind of crazy. It's like the 8th largest country in the world. Yeah, 4.1 trillion. It's pretty incredible. New York's GDP is 2.3 trillion. And that's just New York City, not even New York State. So New York and California continue to be just massive contributors to the overall country, even though they're kind of incentivizing people to leave the states. Lemonade right there, that's up a little bit. Iran down 2%. Gold still pushing at 47.35. Silver just went red, but it's holding 94. Similar to Japan. What is Japan's GDP? I should know this. Japan GDP. Oh, wow. Japan GDP is 4.2 trillion. California is the same as Japan. That's crazy. Dude, the Nikkei also has had a great year so far compared to the S&P. Yeah, it was up more. Now it's up 2.2%. Where's the S&P year to date? We're red, right? We're flat, 0.05%. So once again, everything continuing to... Well, what is the largest European ETF again? I'm forgetting the name of it. What's the thing that tracks all of Europe? Let's see how some of the other international parts of the world are outperforming? Texas, that's a good question. Texas GDP, 2.7 trillion. 2.7 trillion. Oh yeah, the Euro stocks. Okay, let me see. Year to date, Europe's up 1%. Okay, so US is flat, Japan's up 2, Euro's up. KWeb, which are pretty much the most important companies in China, that is up. Oh no, it's down 1%. Wow, you would think last week with Baba and JD. Baba now red today. So China's red as well. India GDP is 4.1 trillion. Canada, or not Canada, California is still above that. What is Canada? Canada GDP is 2.3 trillion. So that's half of what California. IWM year to date is, wow, 7%. I mean, that is quite incredible. Small caps, although it's red today, 7x outperformance of the S&P. Shows you that rotation's real. Palantir right there getting some real green, 171.45. As that continues to go higher. Alaska's GDP, $71 billion. Yeah, Alaska's not the largest GDP here. Celsius up 5%. Okay, so hold on. Is Trump posting on Truth? Let me see. Lutnick's going to be on in a second. We'll listen to him and then we'll end out the show. Oh shit, Trump is spamming Truth Social right now. Dude, he just posted like 15 videos. He's posting all these random like TikTok videos. Oh my God, dude. He's like, no, there's more than 15 videos. This is like almost 25. He's posting about Nevada voter fraud. He's posting about Greenland. He's posting about California. He's posting about Dominion voting machines. That's a little bit of an old story. He's posting on the 2020 election, the FBI. He's posting Fox News clips around Newsom. He's just posted Nick Shirley. Like, this is, I can't even go through these tweets, dude. He's just posting a ton of different videos. Someone has to be using his phone right now, dude. Someone has to just be reposting all this stuff. Oh my gosh. Palantir right there, 171.45. What's Alberta's GDP? That's a good question. Alberta's GDP is 367 billion. All right, I think we got Lutnick. Let's see. I think we have Lutnick. We'll watch this, then we'll end it out for today. Yeah, we should have Lutnick. All right, let's pull this up. Here we go.
Damon.
No, it's not. It's Matt Damon and the Gap CEO. Why is Matt Damon sitting with the Gap CEO? Let's look at what they're talking about, but I don't know why they're here.
And Gary White. Of course, Matt Damon's here. We're talking about water, but we do have to start with the market and just what's going on, because there's a little bit of concern right now about an escalating trade situation with Europe over Greenland. I mean, you've been smack in the middle of the tariffs. When you hear that we're about to have more tariffs, what do you think?
Well, I think every day we're waking up to change. So I think what we know is certain is that change is certain. And so I think what we've done as we've seen these tariffs come and done a very good job mitigating where we can. We've had open dialogue with the administration around the challenges of the impact of tariffs.
You have? Do they listen?
They're listening. You know, I think we have a good dialogue going, and we certainly have continued that effort. At the end of the day,
what is your hope? Are you trying to get
well, I think
exemptions?
I think recognizing the impact that tariffs have, particularly potentially on consumers. And what we've done at Gap, as you know, is we've done a very good job mitigating as best as we can with the most important aspect of our business in mind, which is the consumer. And our brands have done a fantastic job continuing to develop style, quality, and value at the prices that they've been accustomed to. But at the end of the day, we have to do a lot of work diversifying our manufacturing footprint, working with our partners to mitigate as best as we can. We're very pleased with the progress. And so as we all wake up to new news, we'll evaluate it, but we don't see any more material impact at this juncture.
I was going to say, if we see more tariffs, 20% on European countries, does that affect you? Because that's not where your production is.
That's right. No, at this point, we don't believe this current conversation will have great impact on our business. That being said, we're going to monitor everything very carefully.
What do you tell them? What is the consumer impact of tariffs right now?
Well, right now, I think from our position, we recognize that there's surgical price points where we make sure that the value proposition is there. On the back end, we are doing a very good job mitigating. And again, when we talk about mitigating, we're working with our partners on value propositions. We're working on evaluating our investments in terms of what we spend on and how we spend it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, delivering shareholder value, as well as, and most important, the consumer proposition with what we do, which is great clothes, great value, and great style. As long as we do that, customers will react well. And we, as a business, we're able to manage the controllables as best as we can, which, as you know, we've done a very good job of thus far.
Yes, and just where are you in the turnaround story? Because you've seen results now.
We have. We're very pleased, as you know. In the last quarter, we had 7.
All right, so I guess we'll see what Matt Damon has to say about tariffs. Here's another clip of Lutnick at Davos earlier this morning.
It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries. Why would you do that? Why would the United States of America, which has oil and natural gas, try to convert to all electricity? China does not have oil and natural gas. Electricity and electric cars make perfect sense to them. That is practical and logical of thinking. It is.
You can see the panelists don't necessarily see eye to eye with Lutnick. Here's Damon on that panel.
And it wasn't too long ago where the focus of Davos was sustainability and things like conserving water and providing water to people. We're talking about Greenland and tariffs and wars and geopolitics. Does that make it harder to do what
Well,
you're doing?
you are, and we're still talking about water.
Yeah.
So, look, there are 2 billion people, 2.1 billion to be exact, on planet Earth who have 2 things in common. One is they don't have access to clean water, and 2 is they're not here in Davos. And so our job is to always come here and try to keep attention on them. And this issue, which Water.org has been working on for, we started 17 years ago together. We partnered, and we've now reached 85 million people with our solutions and their market-based solutions, which is why you guys keep having us on, which is great. But we're here really to announce this new initiative, which really was spearheaded by Richard, and Richard was the catalyst for this. He came to us a couple years ago, and just like a whirling dervish came into it was just the most unbelievable meeting. And he was like, what more can we do? How do we get, and he literally convened a bunch of companies, and this is where GetBlue came from. GetBlue is essentially, it's inspired by Red, okay? And the success of that incredible campaign that's still ongoing. And so it's a consumer facing, so we've got Richard with Gap, we've got Starbucks, Amazon, and Ecolab.
The water stuff obviously is very important for consumers, but also in the context of energy for data centers, water is going to play a big role there. So, a variety of these initiatives, that Blevin right here going green at 569, are probably going to be taking place to try to fuel what's going on. Jassy was asked about all the energy they're spending on data centers and what it means for consumer electricity prices. And he said, look, we are trying to do the best we can, but we are really building our own infrastructure, and we're investing in things like nuclear, which is why you're seeing Oklo and SMR get a bid, to try to diversify and just build up more energy capacity so that the consumer is not stuck footing the bill for it. Palantir right there, 171. Bitcoin trying to get back to 91. So at least this one making a little bit of a move higher. Again, we saw what Carney was saying already earlier today as well. He is once again upset that the tariffs are being used in a way to coerce partners, and in particular, he called out the United States. That's kind of weird because, I mean, everyone in Davos is like basically shitting on the United States, and then you have a couple of the U.S. representatives, AMD right there, 238, that are trying to justify what the U.S. has done. Rocket Lab right there, 92.24. Amcor still 48.73. Zeta holding on to 20.70. The Qs are down 1%. S&P, again, it's not as ugly. Got to 679. Now we're at 683. Vertiv, this one was up last week. It's up. Air Test Systems. I mean, again, another high beta, less than billion market cap name. You'd think that one maybe takes a hit. Nope. Market leans in. Market is leaning into this type of stuff. Even Quantum, D-Wave was down 7% today. Now it's down 2%. Like, dip's getting bought, folks. COPX is up 2%. The dip is getting bought. Obviously, it could be a head fake, but it's not like it at least today, it's not feeling like it's the biggest head fake. OSS, that one's trying to push $12. That's up 10.7%. Iran is pushing as well. And you're seeing a lot of these names try to look at Iran. It's about to go green. It's 30 cents away from going green. The market is not interpreting this Greenland thing as something that's serious. Absolutely not. I mean, last year it took 2 months to break out of a downtrend, and then it resulted in the 30% S&P drawdown until we finally recovered. This is nowhere near anything like that. Archer just went green. Where's NVIDIA? NVIDIA's at least holding 180, right? NVIDIA, yeah, at least we're holding 180, 180.4. No one is buying Tesla and Meta. So, Tesla has an earnings issue where they're not going to grow earnings at least for the next 3 quarters. I think that's why this stock could still get hit, even though obviously their narrative is way better than a lot of the other AI companies. Meta just has a narrative issue where they're going to grow earnings like 70%, but no one is necessarily believing their CapEx is being spent in the right place. Both of these names should be able, I think, to have a relatively good year, especially Meta, given how cheap it is. But I think narratives are driving both of these down right now. IONQ, is that holding up? IONQ, yeah, goes green, 5.8%. That's up. Tesla has an Elon issue. I mean, again, for all the people that say, I never understand when people are like, Elon shouldn't be the CEO of Tesla. I'm like, dude, this stock would go to like $5 if Elon's not the CEO. Like, he is the reason for the multiple, whether you love him or hate him. And I mean, now he's incentivized to the tune of $1 trillion to get this thing to be worth 10 trillion. Like, if Elon steps down from Tesla, I sell all my Tesla tomorrow. Like, I sell as soon as he makes the announcement. Like, I just can't imagine holding this stock at this multiple without Elon being there. Ondas, yep, that's up 14%, still moving. They got a big upgrade today. App11 goes red again, but big recovery up from 500. SoFi right there, 2607. Rocket Lab trying to hold on at 92.20. Okay, let's see what other clips we can get from Davos. I think, what's his name? Lutnick will be next. And so we'll end out with what he has to say. Does Elon have a new interest in Ryanair? Yes, we talked about it earlier. I don't think he's actually going to buy them, but maybe he does. Gold is at 15 trillion in market cap over the past 12 months. Nat gas, by the way, is up 18%. So you've had a lot of different shocks in the commodities and oil market. Oil's actually up. Brent crude 1.3%. We are back above 60 on oil. We were below 60 for a while. DJT, how is this thing up today? Look at that, 6.3% on Trump stock. I guess people are bidding it up after the Greenland threats. I mean, I don't think there was any news on this. Also, today is the deadline for the credit card APRs. We haven't heard anything from Trump around that. Like he might be a little busy with the Greenland stuff, but Visa and MasterCard just chilling, not really doing much here. Do you think Apple moves up after earnings? I think Apple is going to have the best earnings they've had in a couple of years. They're going to have 12% growth. I think the Google partnership is actually what takes this to 300 this year, like a really new improved Siri, which is probably going to be announced in like a couple months. They're probably going to have a big event for it and then put it out there. And then obviously that foldable phone. By the way, what did you guys say on the chat on the pump or dump for Netflix? 53% say pump. Who's actually doing an earnings move on Netflix? It's almost 50-50. Put in the chat if you're doing an earnings play on Net. I mean, I don't think IBKR and United are worth an earnings play. I don't know if the volatility is going to be there. Maybe on IBKR. Probably not United. That's down 2%. IBKR is down 2%. But what's the implied move on Netflix? I think Netflix has a 8% implied move. Netflix tends to be volatile. Yeah, it's about 8%. 7.7. Okay. So we're going to see what ends up coming up with Netflix. Let me check out their earnings projections. I just don't even feel like I understand Netflix's business enough to be able to easily say I can predict it. Especially because we don't have the subscriber numbers. NVIDIA loses 180 again. Yeah. Once again, 179.92. I mean, if we have a massive NVIDIA earnings and this thing still stays stuck, that's going to be something where I think a lot of people are going to be questioning what the hell's going on with the AI trade. Chris was the top in NVIDIA. Well, Chris bought his options around this 180 price, I think. So, you know, Chris is pretty bullish on this thing getting to 250 by next year. Look, the earnings and the growth is there. It's just the belief now that they, but again, if NVIDIA doesn't pump, I don't understand how Micron's pumping. Like, the only reason Micron's pumping is because there is this super cycle of memory. A lot of that memory goes into the GPUs. There's a couple of companies selling those GPUs and they're growing faster. So it is very weird that the derivative plays are pumping. But NVIDIA's not. We should have TT today with Jason. I just texted him. He should confirm. And yes, we should be having that today with him. Yeah, I get it's a smaller market cap. I get that. But still, I feel like for it to pump the way it's pumped and for NVIDIA to be flat. I mean, now NVIDIA's red for the year. I mean, not even 195. Like, it's weird. It's very weird. Dude, does BitGo go public today? Is that today? I think that's this week. January 22nd. Okay, so in 2 days. You're going to get the pricing today. BTGO, Robinhood is offering it. And then we're going to see if that one ends up coming out. Where's ETH? Are we still at 3,021? I don't see. I don't know if BitGo is a good IP. It's a crypto name. Again, it's associated with crypto. So I don't think the market's going to be friendly towards it if Bitcoin and Ethereum stay flat. So I feel like that's one you wait till the side. Now it probably gets a pump on the opening day, but I don't know if it's like a long-term hold for this year. Netflix just fell under the 200-day moving average. Did it? Yeah. It peaked, tried to get above 90 today. Now at 88.50. IBKR, that's down 2, and then Apple, that's also down 2. Let me see other headlines we have. Citigroup CEO says airlines, retailers, restaurants would be very affected by a cap in credit card rates. Again, doesn't even look like that's going to happen. Palantir CEO Karp says he is very bullish on the Korean market. Makes sense with the deal they announced this morning with HD Hyundai. Talked about the Netflix deal with Warner Brothers. Oh, here's something. Russia has gained $216 billion in rising gold prices, offsetting much of the roughly $300 billion in sovereign assets that they have frozen abroad. The value of the central bank's gold reserves has more than doubled, lifting gold to 43% of the total reserves. Wow. That's incredible, dude. I mean, some of these sovereign central banks that have a ton of gold allocation subsidizing a lot of the other things they're dealing with. Oracle can't catch a break. Oracle, are we below 184? Wow, we lost 184, 183.60. Surprising that the data center plays are actually holding on with Oracle down 4% right here. That's kind of crazy, right? We sanctioned the crap out of Russia, froze all their assets, and gold ends up leading to them doubling the reserves they had from 2 years ago. That's kind of crazy. How is it 11:30 already? Feels like 30 minutes since the open. Yeah, I think this open was something a lot of people expect. I mean, 80% of people on the poll said red today, and we are red, but there's a lot of pockets of green. It is not pure bloodbath across the board. VG, even this was down 4%. Now it's barely down 1%. Nike is about to go green. Intel pushing 50 again. OSS, you're seeing a lot of momentum in a lot of different areas. All right, and then we got Lutnick. We're going to end it out with this. And I think we should be done for the day. Here we go. Here's Lutnick.
About these new tariff threats against European allies on Greenland. Is this serious? Is this happening?
I think the Western Hemisphere for the United States is really important to us, and our national security team is all over it. I'm going to leave that to them. But what I would say is our tariff deals, our trade deals with Europe, with the UK, these are durable and stable. There's nothing about them. The Europeans don't want to change their auto tariffs back to the way they were in April. They don't want to change pharmaceuticals. They don't want to change semiconductors. They're going to think better of change. And what it means is they're going to talk, and they're going to think about things, and they're going to work together, and diplomacy will become back to the top of the stage. So I think that's the way to think about these
European trade deals intact. This is a deal you worked very hard on.
Yeah, I don't see it changing. I don't see it changing. And if it did change, it wouldn't change in the benefit of Europe. That means they want cars the way they have it. They want pharmaceuticals the way they have it. It's been very successful. I mean, think about it. Their stock market's up strong double digits.
It is.
Right? So why would they mess with that? They really need to understand that they should keep the pressure and temperature low. This is just, let's talk to President Trump and let's talk together and let's work it out together.
So you're not like drafting new tariffs at the moment to start on European allies. And by the way, how would that happen? Would that be under IEEPA also, or national security?
When the president speaks, I promise you we all go to work. I promise you we go to work, but I'm going to leave it at that.
Why, some people are wondering why we want to pick a fight with our close ally, both geopolitically, but also, from a trading perspective. They buy a lot of American stuff.
No, I don't think this changes the fact that these are our allies. You can have a fight with your allies. You can disagree with your allies. It doesn't stop them from being your allies or your big trading partners. It just means you have a disagreement. So what? You have a disagreement. That's the way things work, really. And I think President Trump understands it, and their leadership, as you saw, they're going to talk to the president. They're going to talk with him, think about it, and discuss it. And where that goes, I'll leave to them. But the fact is, he is saying, you better be talking to me.
You just came off of a panel here at the World Economic Forum where you were talking about globalization, which in many ways, I think for a long time, the World Economic Forum has been a bit of a celebration around. But you're making the point that things are different now.
Right. I mean, think about what globalization is. Let's find the cheapest labor in the world and do it. And what that means is that the workers in Ohio who make cars, in Michigan who make cars, everybody, right? Remember, once upon a time, Intel made semiconductors, and now they're all made in Taiwan. Why have we allowed our industrial base in America and really in Europe and in the UK to be just completely hollowed out beneath us. It didn't work for the workers. It didn't work for our economy. What it did is it exported our economy to the rest of the world. And so how did the US grow? Kind of about the same as the rest of the world, right? We were in the 2s, they were in the high 1s. Now what's happened? Think about it. We're at the 1-year anniversary of Donald Trump. In the third quarter, we grew 4.3%. And I'm telling you, in the first quarter we're in right now, I think we're going to grow over 5%. The $30 trillion US economy is now going to be growing at 5% or more because we are taking care of ourselves. We finally have an industrial policy that is sensible for America, right? It's going to grow manufacturing in America. I was in Syracuse. We announced the opening of a $100 billion mega fab building high bandwidth memory, right? In upstate New York. When was the last time upstate New York had any investment, let alone one that's going to bring in 25,000 jobs? The Micron's investment in America of $200 billion, it's going to bring in 90,000 jobs to America. And we have over 750 billion of that coming to America. This is how you reindustrialize America.
It takes time.
This is how you do it under Donald Trump.
It takes time to do that. But also, how Secretary Lutnick, we've seen job growth deteriorate in the manufacturing sector. Why do you think that is?
That's a housing thing, okay? You have high interest rates. High interest rates mean our housing starts, right? Our new housing. We're just not building new houses because interest rates are high. That's why Donald Trump talks about the fact that our interest rates are too high. But what you will see over the course of 2026 is, I saw a report that there are 30 groundbreakings coming in the next 45 days. And these are massive projects. And what happens is you start with construction, and then ultimately it's the factory. But don't deny the fact that when you build hundreds of billions of dollars of factories, that's GDP. That's construction. If we finally cut interest rates, remember, one of my points is
we've been cutting interest rates.
75 basis points. That's like milk in your coffee. That's not like the real thing. Okay, the real thing is the United States is the greatest credit on earth, the best credit on earth, and we have the highest interest rates. Why does everybody around us, everyone you speak to, everyone you see here, has lower interest rates?
Because they have lower growth and not as high inflation.
But no. We have very low inflation, and everybody knows it. The fact is our rates are much, much too high, hundreds of basis points too high. What used to happen in America is when we would grow, they'd raise rates to try to put the brakes. And when we were having trouble, then they'd cut rates to add a little gas. But basically, it was designed to have the United States be mediocre. And Donald Trump thinks, make America great again. Why can't we have growth if we have low inflation, have low interest rates? And if we cut interest rates 100 basis points, you're going to see the United States grow 6% or more. And that is something that no economist has ever thought was even possible. And you're going to see it in the United States of America in the back end of 2026 when rates finally start to get cut.
I don't have to tell you this, but the market has to, it's not just the Federal Reserve. And for instance, we had this stock market sell-off today and also a bond market sell-off and a dollar sell-off. So there are questions, about whether there's a changing attitude around long-term debt right now.
One day.
A Scandinavian pension fund today said that it was getting rid of treasuries.
Oh, sure it is. Sure, I get rid of treasuries because and I'd buy what? European government bonds? Right? Like, what's their alternative? Stop it. The fact is, the United States has hit how many record highs? 50 or something record highs this year since Donald Trump took office, right? Oh, and the market's down today. Oh, what? We should all be worried? Let me give you a hint. The growth in the United States is hard and fast. We are winning and we are growing. Our stock market's going to be higher when I next see you and I'm next on the show, right? Interest rates are going to come down in America. Inflation is low. The United States is in a good place because Donald Trump understands the economy of the United States and he's working for the American people and our economy.
Well, clearly there's been a push to make things more affordable and more accessible for Americans. But I do wonder what's with the sort of measures around economic populism, taking the private sector out of home buying, for instance, capping credit card rates, which, we just heard from Jane Fraser, would actually starve the economy of credit. These sort of measures feel more like they're from the left than from the Trump administration. What's with that?
It's a weird thing when in your neighborhood, a big hedge fund or big company comes in and buys up all of the single family homes that are available, right? And it creates like a weird event for you. And if you look at it macro in America, oh, why is it good or bad? But I tell you what.
It might be a weird event, but doesn't it also create incentive for builders to build more homes? There's more buyers?
But this is the key. If they want to hire builders to build homes for rent, that's fine. That's fine. You can hire them to build for rent. But why are you buying the houses that are there that a young family's trying to buy and taking them all off the market and making them all not affordable? So build to rent, go for it. But don't be buying the single family homes out from in front of and paying a little extra in front of the young family trying to get it. Look, when Donald Trump left office, the average age of a single home buyer was 33 years of age.
I know, it's so
And now with Biden's inflation, it went to 40. That's just so wrong. So we've got to get it down, right? One of the ways is to stop these odd things from happening. But basically, interest rates need to be lower so that houses are more affordable for young people to buy the homes. We need to bring that down. You bring interest rates down 100 basis points, you're going to bring the average age down 4 or 5 years. Seriously, it just makes it more attainable. And Donald Trump is on it. He's been talking about it his whole term, right? But now it's crystal clear. He's got to bring interest rates down.
And the solution to that is what? A new Fed chair?
Well, a new Fed chair certainly is going to help. That's for sure. Because Jay Powell, as he says, is too late, you know. And why did Jay Powell cut 50 basis points just before the election?
They were worried about the job market.
He was worried about trying to get reappointed. And now it's 25 here, 25 there, 25 here. We don't have inflation. Everybody knows we don't have inflation.
It's not at 2%. I mean, we're closer to 3% than 2%.
Okay, well, it came down from 9% down to below 3%.
Yeah.
And
Why
I
they're
think we
cutting.
have a great economy that can well handle lower rates, which will allow people to buy houses, which will allow a lot of growth in America, which is jobs for Americans, which is what we're about. It's what this administration is about. Bring those jobs back to America. Bring industrial policy back. I mean, I know industrial policy sounds boring, but let me give you what that means. It means build a factory in Syracuse and hire 25,000 people. Build factories in Arizona, build factories in New Mexico, build factories across the United States of America, in Tennessee and in Georgia and in Alabama. Huge factories, huge jobs, great for America.
And this is what you're working on all day long.
All day, every day.
I know.
And the other thing that we're doing is power.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of power, because we know if we build power in America, our objective is going to be to bring the price of electricity down.
Yes, that has
Right?
been rising.
Well, because we've got to build power. You know, if you don't build power, everything is a draw on your power. But if you build power and you're focused on building power, which we are really focused on building power. I mean, my objective is to build 100 gigawatts of power. And what that means is driving down the cost of electricity for Americans. Try to get it down 10%. Let's try to get it down even further. That's our objective. Drive down the cost of electricity for Americans across the United States.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, thank you for the time.
It was great to be here.
It's fun. You've been in Davos many, many times, but
This is my
not as
31st
not
year.
as Commerce Secretary, so it's a little bit different.
First.
Yeah.
A first where, you know, they treat me nicely.
Yeah, you get to cut the.
All right, folks. What do we think? If we cut rates 100 basis points or more, we will grow GDP by 6%, as per Mr. Lutnick. I'm going to put in the chat. Did anyone take what Lutnick said seriously? I mean, again, he is parroting this argument around why we need Greenland. But the more important thing from what he said, at least what I heard outside of the Greenland stuff, was this idea of Europe's not going to be able to do anything without us. I mean, and he is right to an extent. If they sell U.S. treasuries, whose debt are they buying? Like, they're not buying China's debt. They're not buying Russia's debt. They're damn sure not buying Russia's debt. I don't think they want Japanese debt right now. Like, at the end of the day, the reason the United States continues to have so much power is because our treasuries and what they're backed by continues to be the best place to park capital. To an extent. Now, obviously, in changing geopolitical dynamics, that can shift. But is there a world where Europe just says, no, we don't want to own your debt. We're gonna move forward? And obviously Lutnick and Trump and Bessent are calling that bluff, which is why they're so confident on their threats. But I guess at some point, one side is going to have to capitulate. Pounds right there, 171, as that continues to go green. Yeah, the dollar is down. That is fair. But again, U.S. Treasuries are some of the most liquid places to ultimately park capital and like be able to get a return on that capital. 71% of you said no, you don't take what Lutnick said seriously. Do lower rates lower the value of treasuries? Yes, but like, see, that's the conundrum we're in right now. We're lowering rates, even though Lutnick says it's just the milk and coffee with 75 basis points. And still, we are not getting these treasuries to come down. So you would think the bond buyers, AKA potentially the European central banks, would come in and say, hey, it's time to lock in this 4.27%. But the fact that they're still not meaningfully coming in means that they're demanding a higher yield, which is not good for us. And so we are going to have to keep an eye on if this one ends up gapping higher. All right, that is it for me. Again, I think the synopsis of this day is the market is fading the Greenland tariffs to an extent. Obviously, S&P down 1.2%. That's no joke. That is ugly, but that's not like 4 or 5% down. You got NVIDIA that's down 3.5%. I think NVIDIA's got some own issues when it comes to the AI trade, and that's why it's being doubted. Bloom Energy, new all-time high. Micron hit a new all-time high today. Meta, stable around 600. Tesla's down 3%. That's bad, but it's not horrible. OSS up 8%. AMD got almost 240 today. SoFi below 26, but it's not at 2490. Amcor and Intel pumping on the America onshoring trade. Zeta holding on, undervalued SaaS. Salesforce not holding on, even though it is undervalued, but they can't get the street to buy on. So once again, it continues to be a stock picker's market. I don't think this is a sell everything in panic moment. It might be a bullish head fake or a bearish head fake, but nonetheless, it's not really definitive which side the market wants to go for right now, because some stocks are red, some stocks are green. You're not seeing everything go V-shape. You're not seeing everything go down. And I think the corporate earnings that are coming up, obviously Trump will speaking at Davos tomorrow, all that stuff will contribute into what ends up happening here. I will not be doing the market open tomorrow. I'm going to be in New York from 9 to 10 a.m. I really tried to not do 9 to 10 a.m., but it wasn't up to me. So we will not have a market open tomorrow. We will have a market close. We will have, I believe Jason will be on today for Technical Tuesday. And so I'll be back for the close. We'll get some more of these clips from Davos, and we'll get some technical perspectives on how this stuff might get impacted by what's happening with Greenland. Davis says good. Thank you, Davis. I appreciate you not wanting to watch the show. He's hiking with another guy. I am going to be with another guy tomorrow. That guy's name is Steve, and I don't think Steve is a fan of going on hikes, but I think you guys will enjoy what we're doing tomorrow, and it'll be a good reason to miss it. Okay, word of the day. Anfractuous. Winding, twisted, full of turns, not straightforward. The path to consistency in trading is anfractuous. Progress looks messy until it suddenly compounds. How do you say this thing? Anfractuous.
Anfractuous.
Dude, not that bad. Not that bad. All right, anfractuous. So this is a not straightforward path. Obviously, this market has been anfractuous over the past 20 days, and it probably will continue to be. Trump's mind is anfractuous. Yes, his policies are anfractuous. I mean, you've got so many things being thrown at the wall. But time will tell to see if this ends up playing out. We didn't even get the Supreme Court decision, so there's just a lot of different narratives, geopolitically and economically, conflicting with each other. And then you got earnings coming up. We'll be live for Netflix after the bell as well. I think we'll do Netflix United IBK. We're not going to watch the Netflix call. It's always super boring. We'll get the results, and then we'll have Jason on. But lots of different narratives going back and forth to see how we can track how this market plays out. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll be live in the market close, and we will keep going from there. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys Netflix after the bell, and then we'll have Technical Tuesday. Bye, everybody. See you guys in a bit.